Okay, today we'll be discussing these topics in the context of mains. So we'll be discussing the current affairs from 29th April till March to April. Okay, this will be the duration, and these are going to be important from mains context. You can see. First, most importantly is PMLA. You know why it was so much in news, right? Because of different reasons. Always we are saying the act. So there is a high probability in mains and prelims this question from this topic can be asked. Then we'll be looking into what is glacial lake floods. Okay, glacial lake outburst also we call. So this is in the recent times very much in news. Then with respect to VVPAT also Supreme Court said, okay, we will examine with respect to this issue what the political parties are asking or what the Election Commission wants to recommend to the Supreme Court in this regard we'll look into. Then what is this internationalization of rupee? Then what is this Article 292 and 293 of Indian Constitution, why they are in news, we'll look into. Then what is this ADR data on MPs, okay. So what they are doing with respect to criminal aspects, whether they are performing well in the parliament and all, they have given some set of data. We'll examine the data also. And then we have this coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which was signed as part of UNCBD. Then we have internet freedom in India. A report was recently released in this regard. So how much internet shutdowns happen in, is internet a basic right or not? With respect to this also we'll look into. Then Indians are going abroad to give birth. In this context also we'll be looking, okay. These are important from mains perspective. Prelims things I'll discuss later on, okay. So now first most important act is Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So if you have seen, all the time it is so much in news, no, in this entire year because of number of reasons, right? So most importantly, because of Enforcement Directorate. You are seeing Enforcement Directorate because that is investigating authority with respect to money laundering, okay, offences and all. So first, most importantly, you should know what is this PMLA, why did we have this act in India, what are the provisions of this act, why it became controversial. And some parties are alleging that whatever the ruling government or the party is there, they're using this, okay, in to grudge, or you can say to lower down the morale of the opposition parties and all. In this context, you should know everything about this. First, you should know is what is the concept of money laundering. What is money laundering? The definition or the meaning of the term. Anyone? Very good. Laundering means what? Dirty clothes will be made clean, right? Same way, here also dirty money. Dirty money means which is not soiled, okay? But here the money which is coming from illegal activities. What are the illegal activities? Corruption, drug trafficking, human trafficking, organized crime, terrorism, hawala, all this, okay? So in any form it can be. So if this, from these sources, if any money is getting generated, that is actually illegal in India, right? That means it is considered as black money. But these money are again, they're transferring to some other places, and again, through that they're rerouting back that into India as white money. That means same black money is coming back to India as white. That means illegal money is becoming legal, which is an offense of money laundering. So this is illegal in India. So what is the source of this, why we have this PMLA Act in India means, you have to go back to 1980s and 2000s. At that time what happened, in US there is very high scale drug trafficking happening on, okay. So large sums of money is being put into drug trafficking, and it became a very difficult situation for all the governments. From US it started and it is slowly expanding to different parts. So narcotic drugs, trafficking, everything started at that point of time. So seeing that urgency and the seriousness of the issue, in 1988, there is one UN convention that was brought, okay, UN Convention on Narcotic Drugs and Other Psychotropic Substances. That act was brought so that the drugs and whatever the drug trafficking related things will be there, those things can be curtailed down. That is the main first convention you have to keep in mind with respect to illicit use of drugs as well as psychotropic substances. 1988, okay. Then what happened? They have identified from where we are getting these drugs. The source of money is again black money, illegally coming. So that means money laundering is helping in this drug trafficking, which is becoming a serious law and order issue or social issue also in different countries. Then what they identified? In 1989, if you have remembered, in G7 summit, what happened? 1989 G7 summit, what happened? One organization was formed at the international level. Very good. FATF, Financial Action Task Force, was created, right? You know there is an international organization, FATF. That is, this FATF is functioning with respect to, very good, money laundering, terrorist financing, and initially it was established with respect to money laundering. Okay. Later on, terrorist financing was also added on as one of the objective. Then what happened? In 2012, they even also included weapons of mass destruction also under its ambit. Prevention of weapons of mass destruction. So what are these weapons of mass destruction? Nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons, which can, okay, so any weapon which can result in large scale deaths, that is called weapons of mass destruction. So even those are also brought under the ambit of FATF, because with this illegal money only they will be generating these things, no? Whatever the weapons are being there, that are getting developed because of this money. So they have brought even weapons of mass destruction also under the ambit of FATF. In the recent times, they also have added virtual assets also, like cryptocurrencies. You have all these things, no? Okay, what are running on blockchain technology, all those virtual assets are also brought under the domain of FATF. That means initially this organization was established as part of G7 summit in 1989 to curb money laundering, because at that time that particular problem became a global problem. If there is no regulation, if there is no monitoring, then it will not be controlled. That is why it was initially established, but later on it has widened its scope. So India initially was not a member of FATF, it joined as a complete member in 2010 itself. Okay, so 2010 onwards, India became a member in FATF. This is what the main thing you have to keep in mind. So first we have here UN Convention on illicit drugs and psychotropic substances in 1989. Again, to curb money laundering, we have FATF. Okay, this is what happened. Again, in 2002, you know, there is one article called Article 253 of Indian Constitution. You know, under Article 253, what is the duty on the center? In case if you have signed any international agreements, okay, at the international level, or if India becomes a signatory to any of the international agreements, then whatever the content of the matter or the convention is there, that has to be tabled in the parliament as a national law. That means how you will enforce it within your territory. You have to have a domestic law. To give ratification to international agreements, you need to have a domestic law. That is what Article 253 is saying. As we have signed and ratified this UN convention, now it is a time to give in domestic law to curb money laundering, because we are signatory. So in this way, we have enacted 2002 PMLA Act. That is the main intention. Okay. So in this way, the backdrop I have given till now. So you understood what is the definition of money laundering and then the backdrop, right? So in this way, we had this PMLA. Then what happened now? If you have seen, this PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, is dealing with what type of offences? Money laundering offences, right? So who is having the power with respect to this? Enforcement Directorate. So that is an investigating agency under Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. Okay. So that is the investigating agency. So here, what are the objectives of PMLA? Why the law was brought again? What things it has to do? First thing is prevention of money laundering. That is the objective, right? Second most important thing is, in case in the procedure of, if they come to know some money is generated through money laundering, that money can be confiscated. If you have seen in the newspapers, we'll be seeing ED attaching the assets and all these things. No, they can attach the property. That means if they have any doubt that this money was generated from money laundering or illegal activities, that money can be confiscated or that property can be attached or seized by Enforcement Directorate. That power also was given under PMLA. Then fines can be imposed. Fines means, so it depends on the crime and all. Economic offense, no, money laundering is an offense. So how much is the gravity of the crime? Based on that, you have the fine imposed. But maximum imprisonment, how much it can be imposed is minimum 3 years, maximum 7 years of imprisonment also can be given in case if you are charged with money laundering, okay, and you are accused of. So this is another objective. And fourth objective they said is there can be an adjudicating authority. Adjudicating authority means in case of any dispute with respect to money laundering cases, who has to decide? That will be the adjudicating authority. Normally, who will be the adjudicating authorities? Courts, right? Okay. That means in case if there is any need, they can also establish some other adjudicating authorities also, as well as some tribunals also can be established in this regard. That is also there as a provision in this act. You have to keep this in mind. So these are some objectives. Then the investigating agency is Enforcement Directorate, as I told you, and you also have another unit which will report with respect to this is Financial Intelligence Unit India. What is this? FIU Ind. Financial Intelligence Unit India means what? It is also under same Department of Revenue under Ministry of Finance. These type of things can be asked in prelims. There is high potential because when we are coming across these things, they'll change the ministry or they'll change the department. Instead of Department of Revenue, Department of Financial Services, Economic Affairs, they can change and they can frame statements. Be cautious. So both are under Department of Revenue. Initially ED was under Department of Economic Affairs, but later on it was shifted to Department of Revenue under Ministry of Finance. Do remember. So this is one organization under Ministry of Finance to detect suspicious economic activities. Suddenly into your account, if 10 crores of money was deposited, something suspicious happens, right? How you're generating that much amount of money, there should be some record, right? That means if any suspicious economic activity take place, this will be the watchdog in India. Financial Intelligence Unit India. Okay. This also helps Enforcement Directorate in understanding the economic crimes. Okay. So as I told you previously, I didn't remember whether I have discussed with you or not, but Enforcement Directorate directly cannot register a case. Okay. So sometimes it can do, but recent amendments happened. No? After 2002, so many amendments were brought. What are those amendments and why they were brought, I'll explain. But here first thing is PMLA, under PMLA, see for example, I have told even in Arvind Kejriwal's case also. So if you see, initially they said on the charges of bribery or corruption. Okay, that means actually CBI has to involve. But why Enforcement Directorate came into picture is sometimes in case if investigating agencies like CBI, SEBI or any other organizations, okay, local police also, if they have registered FIR in the scheduled offences of Enforcement Directorate PMLA, they can directly register a case and they can, without even asking by the government also, they can investigate that case. That means here already CBI has registered a case on Arvind Kejriwal, no? That whatever on what basis they have registered a case was one of the offence listed under PMLA, under which ED is having the power. So even without asking also they can go with this case because it was another one of the scheduled offences. So it can be with the local police, it can be CBI, SEBI or any other regulatory body or investigating body. In case if they have registered, ED can go and then take up the case. In that way it started here. Okay. So you have to keep these things in mind. Then as I told you, another important thing you have to keep in mind is subsequent amendments were made. So if you see, PMLA was so much criticized because initially we have enacted to adhere to this convention, as I told you, Article 253, right? But in the recent times, if you see, even with respect to prevention of corruption of Corruption Act 1988, we have with respect to that also provisions were added. Okay, under PMLA. That means a public servant who is taking bribery or corruption is equated with a person who is involved in drug trafficking and all. Same offence. That means initially it was given only powers with respect to money laundering activities related to this only. But now subsequent amendments added so many things under PMLA's ambit. Okay. So like Prevention of Corruption Act 1988 is one main thing. Like this, so many changes were made subsequently, and because of these changes, its scope got widened. Okay. As initially it was brought for only one main thing. Clear so far? So here you can see, so recently Punjab and Haryana High Court, what they have said is, accused whoever is in the police custody without fulfilling the conditions, even also then he can be released by the courts. So what happened here is, most contentious provision of PMLA Act is section 45. Okay. What happened or what is happening with this section 45 is, it is giving the power to the judge. So judge can in his own satisfaction give the bail to the person who is accused under PMLA. That means they said satisfaction of the judge is important when you have to give bail. So now understand the situation, whether the judge will take risk under that clause of satisfaction and can he release a person on bail? Will any judge sitting in his official capacity try to give bail to the persons in PMLA? No. Yes or no? That means you are restricting the bail chances, no? That is why if you see, మనం ఎప్పుడు చూసినా కూడా like in case of Kavita or Arvind Kejriwal, every time bail is getting denied, right? Okay, so that is what actually most important contentious act here. Satisfaction of the judge. That means they don't take personal capacity to satisfy and give the bail. In case if it is proved wrong, they have to face some charges, right? That is why no one is ready to give bail in these cases. That is what happened in this section 45. Then what happened? Supreme Court, after so many appeals by different sections of the society, they have examined section 45 of PMLA and they said this act is curtailing down the bail provisions. Or see, normally under any law, except specific laws will be there. Okay, specific laws means like UAPA and all these acts. Normally general Indian criminal law says that bail should be the rule, jail should be an exception. Bail should be the rule, jail should be an exception. That means even with respect to Supreme Court also recently said bail reforms, why they are asking for bail reforms is easily there should be provision of bail in India. But in most of the cases, bail is not being given to the victims or the persons who are accused because of different provisions in different acts. Normally, it should be bail as the rule and jail as the exception. But it is reversing in normal instances. That means bail is becoming the exception and jail is becoming the rule. So with respect to this, in Naresh Tarachand case, 2018 I guess, it is 2018. So in this Naresh Tarachand case, very, very important, Supreme Court has struck down section 45 of PMLA Act because it is narrowing down the bailing powers, no? The judge is not easily giving the bails with respect to PMLA. So they have struck down. But what government have done subsequently, again they have brought an amendment and they have again restored the same provision with some modifications. Subsequently, what Supreme Court have done? It again has upheld. Second time they can't do anything, right? Again if they have stuck down, again government will bring some amendments. So they have in the recent times upheld that, okay, we are allowing the bail with some conditions. So in this way, PMLA became one major criticism because bail provisions are very strict in PMLA. Okay, this is one most important thing you have to keep in mind. Then we'll understand what is the process of money laundering here. So this is out of the current affairs, but you need to know because in internal security or any other economic activity, you should know about this. So what happens in money laundering is, first most important thing is placement. Placement means the money will be placed in one particular entity like bank. Okay, the dirty money or the illegal money we call. So it will be placed in the financial system in some another way. Like you can say Hawala transaction, real estate, or we have these what we call shell companies or any way. Okay, they'll try to integrate and they'll try to place this dirty money and they'll be transferring. Layering is nothing but they'll be transferring to some other account. They'll try to change different places so that again it will be integrated back into the economy as white money. This is what placement, layering, integration. These are the three stages normally that take place in money laundering. Okay, so this is what you have to keep in mind. It is very easy. So whatever the dirty money is there, that will be placed into the banks, into the financial system. It will be transferred to some other way, some other place, okay, of the country. Then it will be again used. It will be integrated into the mainstream economy and they will use that money to buy different things. Again, they'll try to make it clean. In this way, money laundering normally operates. So then what you have to keep in mind, as I told you, this was enacted in 2002. It came into force in 2003, mainly to combat money laundering. So these are the main objectives I told you: to control money laundering, confiscating and seizing the property or attaching the assets of the person, and also to deal with any other issues connected with money laundering in India. Here what you have to keep in mind is why there is a need for money laundering. Okay, so when you are referring to money laundering, you should understand there is global urgency. Global urgency means if money laundering happens, what happens? Is it good for the global economy or not? Why? What will be the negative impact? Economy will? Okay. And you will get more taxes or less taxes? Tax evasion will happen, right? And then what will be the negative impacts in case if there is more money laundering happening in the economy? How it will impact? Crime will increase, no? That means when you are having more money for illegal activities, that means automatically crime, terrorism, organized crime, all these illegal activities will increase. That means these mafias, underground mafias, they'll become strengthened and they'll automatically become threat to different countries, right? Again, whoever they don't like the governments, they will face these attacks from the so-called illegal groups and all. So in that way, there is a global urgency at the international level. As I told you, FATF in this regard, it is a main international body with respect to money laundering as well as terrorist financing. So these two are interlinked, no? So both were given the powers under FATF. So this is one main thing. Then even with respect to this, into 1990s late, we have this UNGA resolution also. They said there should be a call for an action with respect to money laundering. There should be some action by all the countries and they have to control this. Then with respect to this, Narasimhan committee recommendations also were given. If you have remembered, in economy, what is this Narasimhan committee recommendations? In what sector we have these Narasimhan committee recommendations? Banking sector. So how it is related here? Normally these transactions have to happen through financial institutions only, like banks or any other medium. So they have to exercise their duty in a proper way. So they should keep a visual on the accounts from where they're getting the money and everything. If they're proper, we can easily identify. Financial Intelligence Unit India, I told you, so they can be intimated by the banks and also with respect to this, banks should exercise a caution with respect to the money and the transfers of funds which are happening. Then international standards, as I told you, there is one convention, UN convention. When you are adhering to the convention and standards, you will better do that. Then what is the legislative authority and scope of Article 253? I told you, Article 253 will give the power to the parliament, okay? When to ratify, already when you have ratified an international convention, the same place you have to have a domestic law, okay? Under this, we have to adhere to this UN convention, we have enacted a separate act called PMLA. So this is a need. Then what are the amendments made? If you see recently in 2023 also there is some amendment made on the recommendations of FATF. Okay. What did FATF say? Recently in 2023 FATF has issued a guideline with respect to virtual assets, cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies or digital assets are running on the blockchain technology. Why they are so much criticized? Lack of centralization, no? They're very decentralized medium of exchange. But what are the positives they have? They're very safe, easy, cheaper medium of exchange. Because normally, if there is no intermediary, sometimes if you transfer funds, what happens? You have to pay some certain fee as a service charge or something. Okay, but if there is no intermediary, that money also will be saved. No, in that way, they're cheaper compared to the normal banks. But what is the negative thing here? As there is no centralized authority or medium of exchange between the funds transfer, who will be regulating here? Who will know? See, if bank is there, like what we have seen in the previous slide, if banks are noticing who is transferring and how much they're transferring, and if they record all the data and they submit to RBI or Financial Intelligence Unit, then we can easily monitor the source of funds and transactions. But in case if there is no regulatory authority and no one is monitoring, then what happens? You don't know how the money is transferred to these illegal activities and all. It is very difficult to regulate, right? That is why virtual assets or cryptocurrencies are becoming a medium of this money laundering. So FATF said virtual assets should be better controlled. And some countries, if you have seen, like China, in some other countries like Australia, they have also issued some guidelines in on preventing this virtual assets for medium of exchange, because clearly that can be misused and they can use it for illegal activities like money laundering. That is why adhering to the FATF guidelines, India also has issued some guidelines. Okay, but what is India's performance and all, that has to be evaluated by FATF. How much effectively they are implementing the guidelines and all, that will be there. So on the recommendations of FATF, we have made some recommendations or amendments to 2023 amendment, you can say, saying that virtual assets also are becoming a source of money laundering. So those things cannot be encouraged, okay, for transactions between the persons. So recent amendments, if you see, one is they have defined politically exposed persons. Okay, politically exposed persons means what happens? See, normally the persons who are arrested under prevention of money laundering, as money laundering is an economic offense, right? So as it is an economic offense, the people who are there normally will be economically and politically very influential persons, right? It is not that easy to arrest them, and afterwards if they're not whatever the allegations they were made against, if they're not proven of that allegation, then what happens? For example, consider Arvind Kejriwal's case. We don't know whether he have done that particular act or not. So in case after few days or like after few months or years, if after 2 years as an under trial or something, after that if they have given a verdict that it is clean, there is nothing happened from his side, being a chief minister and arrested and put under judicial custody for 2 years, how that will impact the country? Yes or no? That means there should be very cautious thing when you are dealing with such persons, no, politically exposed persons. You cannot arbitrarily arrest. There should be very good soundproof. Otherwise, what happens? This enforcement directorate will be facing so many issues from the courts, right? That is why they have defined with respect to politically exposed persons what type of measures have to be taken. Okay, some set of guidelines, because in the name of these persons, some innocents can be trapped and they can be booked into the cases, right? That is easy. And even politically also they can exploit others. So in that way they have defined this. Then with respect to cryptocurrencies and virtual digital assets, I already told you, those were also brought under money laundering ambit by FATF recommendations. Then due diligence and documentation requirements are required. Due diligence means with respect to when you're when you're attaching the property, or when you're seizing this whatever the assets or all these things are related to the money laundering are there. So you have to ensure that there is diligence with respect to document requirements, and you have to adhere to those things. Without arbitrarily, you cannot do that. Then clarification on the proceeds of the crime, from where they have get. So in the recent times, if you have seen in Arvind Kejriwal's case only, initially enforcement directorate has raided his home, but they said we didn't find any money at that point of time. That means later on, where they will, on what basis, if court asks, okay, on what basis, even though if you didn't find money from particular person's house and all, so why did you arrest, or where did you get the source of information from? That means at that time they have to have this clarification from where that source of money is coming and all. Here that the case they said is Delhi excise policy, Delhi excise policy and all. But sometimes from where they're getting the money also, the enforcement directorate or the persons who are arresting, they need to have some clarification. Otherwise, it will lead into legal issues, because most of the persons will be big persons who are arrested under these cases. Then what is a critical role? Crucial role is mainly some scams like 2G spectrum. You might have seen this 2G spectrum allocation. It happened in UPA regime, no? So with respect to that also, this was exposed under PMLA only. Then we have Augusta Westland case. This is also, these two happened during UPA time, okay? You need not go into those scams, but these are also exposed on the grounds of PMLA only. So we have some good things also happened in the past. So asset seizure and confiscation also, like Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya's case, okay? In the recent times, this PMLA is not only having with respect to, ED is not having only with respect to PMLA, but Foreign Exchange Management Act is also there, right? 1999, Foreign Exchange Management Act. Have you heard about this? If you are resorting to any irregularities in foreign exchange, then also you can be arrested by ED. Then another act we have is Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. Who is a fugitive economic offender? Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya, right? What are those fugitive economic offender means? Economic offender means some economic offense was committed. But who is a fugitive? Yes, just to bypass the legal things, okay? So if they voluntarily and intentionally, if they bypass, if they wanted to bypass legal things and if they escape out of the country, then those persons will be considered as fugitive economic offenders, okay? So that is what happened in Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya, no? They're not coming back. So what is the weapon we use normally here? Extradition. Yes or no? to bring back them to the country. So this is also the third act. Normally people will be thinking these are the two things under ED's ambit, but there is Fugitive Economic Offenders Act also, okay, under ED. This is what you have to keep in mind. Then international compliance and FATF. Panama paper leak also you might have seen. Panama is a tax haven, right? What happens in the tax havens? Yes, it is less or no zero tax jurisdictions. Okay, what people will do? People will be taking the money from here, like India, by resorting to tax evasions, and they'll place that money in these tax havens. Okay, so that they will bypass the taxes to what they have to pay to the government and also in this way. Panama paper leak has given some names and all. At that time also, there is this PMLA that was used. Then financial intelligence unit coordination, I already told you about this. Monitoring financial transactions will be done by this only, and enhanced due diligence should be there. Diligence means you should pay some proper attention and skills when you are identifying these things. And deterrent to criminals, like it will be like after Satyam scam, corporate scam we have, no? Satyam scam. So after this, because of strict enforcement things only, we didn't have another corporate scam, right? That means this is acting like a deterrent from further scams happening and all, even with respect to 2G or these type of scams. In this way, it is very useful only, because when a mains question is asked, they can ask that this act has become a political weapon, like you have seen CBI and ED are becoming the caged parrots, or they're operating again like according to their master or something. These are the words used by Supreme Court very often, right? So when these type of statements they can frame, and they can ask you whether actually PMLA is useful or not. Okay, at the time these are the positives which you have written in the previous slide. That means they have given some important inputs to us in strengthening the economic situations in the country. But at the same time, these are the negatives what PMLA is suffering from. Okay, so first most thing is definition of proceeds of crime is not clear under PMLA. If you see most of the times, what is a problem in Indian laws is we have number of laws. Enforcement is the main problem, and sometimes there is a chance of high interpretation also, because if you are having an act for one particular thing, for example, consider money laundering. What is actually money laundering will not be properly defined. So again, it will lead to a lot of interpretation. Again, it depends from situation to situation, case to case basis. So they'll try to find out the loopholes and they'll escape. So this is what the problem with most of the Indian laws. Same here also. They didn't define what is proceeds of crime properly. So this is one challenge. Then inclusion of non-drug offences. As I told you, PMLA initially why the UN convention was brought with respect to drug trafficking. But later on what happened? Even with respect to corruption and different things are also they have added, no? Okay, in this way this entire act got widened in its scope. Then burden of proof will be on the accused. Normally in a general criminal law, burden of proof will be on the prosecution. Okay, see, if you are alleged that you have committed a crime, means the burden of proof will not be on you that I didn't commit a crime. The person who is charging that you have committed a crime, that is a prosecution, okay, that person has to take the charge and he has to show that you have committed a crime. But in PMLA, like type of special economic offences, burden of proof will be on the accused that they did not resort to this money laundering. They have to prove on their own. It is not on the prosecution. Okay, so this is a special economic offence. So here you have to keep in mind. And stringent bail conditions, as I told you. So under section 45 we have seen, no, satisfaction of the judge is very important. But in case if that satisfaction has to be taken into consideration, why Supreme Court has struck down this in Naresh Tarachand case? Because it is violating article 14 and 21, right? Under 14 you have right to equality. Under 21 you have right to life and liberty, where they also consider right to speedy trial. All these are the one of the part, intrinsic part, right? So these are getting violated in case if you are having stringent bail provisions. As I told you, bail is a rule, but normally this is not followed under PMLA, right? This is one main challenge. Then lack of written communication from the for arrest. Okay, so you have seen most of the times what they're doing in the recent times, they're going for raid, automatically they're arresting. Okay, they're not following the proper procedure of arrest, or they're not giving the written communication before that we are going to arrest you, because most of the people are politically influential, no? So it may lead to some issues of with respect to law and order and all. So they're not resorting to these things. In complex legal procedures, whatever the jurisdiction is there with respect to this, there is no adjudicating authority, it is taking time. So courts, normal courts again, they're intervening into these aspects and it is taking a lot of time, because of which it is increasing its complexity. Then inadequate training and resources of the persons who are working under Enforcement Directorate, they also are very short. So in this way, so how you can suggest to better reform this PMLA is, first thing, some parliamentary committees have recommended, okay, how to strengthen this. So those recommendations have to be adhered, like parliamentary committee on you have home affairs and all, and law also, they have suggested to ease the bail provisions or to define whatever the loopholes we have discussed in the previous slide, no, those things have to be addressed. Those are the recommendations that should be brought. Then refinement of proceeds of crime definition. You have seen lack of definition in the challenge. You are suggesting that there should be proper definition in the suggestion. Then reassessment of burden of proof. It also has to be changed. Accused means it will take a lot of time, no? The person under judicial custody, how can he show on his own that I'm not the person who have committed or not? So the burden of proof has to be changed. So this is one suggestion you can give. Safeguards against official, like officers overreach. So officers sometimes are saying overreach and all. So with respect to that also some safeguards should be given. Review of stringent bail protection. This also has to be resolved. Periodic review and amendments should be made to the act so that these things will be addressed. In public awareness and education with respect to money laundering also has to be increased. So these are the suggestions. Okay. I have given enough information to answer a mains question. Okay. So what are the benefits, challenges and suggestions? So in this way, if a question is asked, you have to attempt. Clear? So here Enforcement Directorate also you need to know. Law enforcement agency with respect to economic offences in India. So which type of thing? Economic laws as well as economic crimes. So first thing is, it was formed in 1956 as Enforcement Unit. Later on, it was renamed as Enforcement Directorate. Okay, it is dealing with two types of acts from the beginning. PMLA 2002 you have. This was modified and amended in 1999. FEMA we have from 1999, amended act. Okay, so 1999 FEMA and PMLA 2002. With respect to these two things, in 1957 it was renamed as Enforcement Directorate. This is most important thing for prelims. Okay, they can ask the department and the ministry. Do remember these things. Okay, Department of Revenue as well as Ministry of Finance. Clear with this? So objectives, as I told you, three main things. FEMA Act 99, PMLA, Fugitive Economic Offenders Act 2018. Do remember this also. Very important. Most of the students ignore this. They can ask question on this also. Then answer this question. What is answer? 2 only, right? It is not Ministry of Home Affairs, right? Ministry of Finance. So only 2 is the answer. Then what is the next topic is glacial lake floods or glacial lake outburst. Okay, clear with the first topic? So first thing you need to remember is this glacial lake floods, or you can say outbursts or floods. In the recent phenomenon, we are having these type of natural disasters happening more frequently. So if you have seen Uttarakhand government, it has formed an expert panel and they have said in the recent times, there is high risk areas in Uttarakhand which can result in this glacial lake outburst. If you have seen 6 months back or 5 months back, in Sikkim we have glacial lake outburst and so many persons have lost their lives because of this. So there is high chance, as UPSC normally tests the questions related to natural disasters. So they can focus on earthquakes and volcanoes. That is a recent thing. But in the recent times, we are having these type of things, landslides, avalanches happening more, no? So they can ask with respect to these things. So first you need to understand what is glacial lake floods. Okay. So you know glaciers means when some mountains, okay, so they're bound by snow, you call them glaciers, or they can be deposited even in the valley areas also, right? So what happens when this climate change is happening? What happens is glaciers melt, no? Yes or no? Whatever the glaciers that are melting, whatever the water that is generated from that melting will get deposited in a depression. In that way, lakes will be formed. Normally, if you see in any part of the world also, we have lakes formed by 3 ways. One is either glacial way, either tectonic movements also will result in, or human related causes. Like if you induce a reservoir or lake, in that way also it can be created. So these can be generally 3 reasons how lakes can be formed. So here, whatever the lakes that are created or the depressions, lakes are nothing but depressions which are created by melting of the glaciers, that we call as glacial lakes. Okay. So these are considered as glacial lakes. Okay. So what happens is, in the glacial areas, these are very common, like high altitude areas, you can say, where the Himalayas are there in India. In those areas, it is very common. So if you see these glacial outbursts, as I told you, what is glacial lakes is clear, and where they occur is clear. So you have to keep in mind that dammed by unstable ice and sediments, because you don't know when avalanches happen, when any snow takes in different form and all, right. So suddenly, because of different forces, due to the change in local weathers also, sometimes ice may destabilize, right. So suddenly, if there is destabilized or unstabilized ice, what happens, this whatever the lake is there, see for example, so if this is the lake, okay, in the valley area, it is formed by depression from this snow area melting glaciers, okay. So what happens, suddenly here also ice will be there, no, okay, if it is there. So if this ice got destabilized or unstabilized, what happens, entire this water will be flooding out, no, to the low-lying areas. So this is what we call glacial lake floods or outbursts. That means suddenly, because of melting of more ice or snow, or because of instabilized ice movements, suddenly whatever the lake water, that was lake or water, the water collected by the glacier melting and all, that will suddenly flood out into the low-lying areas. So that is the main phenomenon that happens during glacial lake outbursts. Same thing happened in Sikkim also recently. But if they have identified across the world, almost 1800 lakes have this potential of glacial lake outbursts. And in Uttarakhand, there are many in India. Because Uttarakhand is snowbound area, no, where we have this Himalayas and all. So Uttarakhand is having high intensity of happening this glacial or having this glacial lake floods. So that is why this is in news. Okay, you need to understand. So normally, what will be there? This rock and debris, rocks and debris, if they move apart, or if this ice, what is there in the snowbound areas, if that become unstable and if they move suddenly, this lake water will be coming to the low-lying areas. So that this is causing. So what will be the factors that cause these things is glacial calving. What is meaning of the word calving? Calving. What happens in a glacial calving? Here itself is there, no? Glaciers will not be uniform, right? There will be like layers of layers will be there. Suddenly, if they get chunks of the ice can be removed or destabilized, if they move apart also, that water can move away from the particular place, no, from the depression. So glacial calving means they will move from each other or they destabilize from each other. Because of this, it can happen. Or sudden water displacement happen, or sometimes avalanches and slow landslides also. Avalanches, you might have seen in movies, right? Suddenly, snow will be coming like a flood. Okay, in that situation also, it will easily give the way for the water to be released, right, from the high areas to the low areas, right. In that way also, these two factors normally trigger. Whatever that happens is mainly under the influence of gravity only. Here also gravity plays an important role. So UPSC can trap in those questions also. Landslides also happens through gravity only, and most of these type of rock debris, ice debris and all these things also happens under the influence of gravity only. Okay. Otherwise, from high areas, it will flow into the low areas, no. So that is the main factor. So what are the destructions associated with this? How it endangers our ecosystems? What will be the impacts? Biodiversity loss. Then, yes, what happens suddenly if there is a glacial lake outburst or if it results in any flooding? Flash floods happen. That means it will result in human loss, physical, economic, infrastructural losses. Then whatever happens with floods, everything happens here also, right? Infrastructural damage, everything, okay? So whatever the hilly areas that have this potential of having this glacial lake outburst, they have high risk. So what is the main thing you can do? You have to identify the potential areas and you have to remove the people from that particular area. Okay. So in what situations this is increasing? Because climate change is increasing, no? If more climate change happens, what happens? More glaciers melt. Then there is more amount of glacial lakes forming. Yes or no? These things are accentuating. And extremely large population and increasing rapid infrastructure. As you are expanding, where you are going to the close by the nature only, right? You're going close into the nature and the nature bound areas. So when you're settling in eco-sensitive areas, these type of incidents will result in huge losses to the human as well as society as well, right, in economic and other forms. So this is the main thing you have to keep in mind. So what is the goal of this risk assessment is to minimize the possibility, and also you have to ensure that some time of relief will be provided here. Okay, then under NDMA, we have seen in the previous class, NDMA we have discussed, no, with respect to Karnataka. They have asked with respect to drought relief. NDMA headed by Prime Minister. So they said this has identified 188 glacial lakes in the Himalayan states across the different countries. Around 1800 lakes were there. Okay, but in India 188, out of which you can see 13 are there from Uttarakhand. That means Uttarakhand is having more potential of having this glacial lake outburst. So they have to take some measures to prevent before only. Okay, otherwise these are sudden phenomena. No, you don't know what triggers it suddenly. So that is why these things have to be taken care better. Then the third issue we are going to discuss is VVPAT. Okay, you know what is VVPAT? Voter Verifiable Audit Trial. Okay, paper and audit trial. So what happens, why they were introduced? After you cast your vote, you may have some doubt, right? So whether my card, whatever my vote is there, whether it was given only for the candidate I wished or not. So it is like a verification or check from your side. So what happens after you press your vote on EVM? So this slip will be generated. You can see here the slip. Okay, so it will show the serial number, name of the candidate, and the symbol. Only these three things. Do remember, this type of things can be asked. So they can say that whatever the ruling party, so the party name and all. So those things will not be there. Just name of the candidate, serial number in the ballot paper, as well as this party symbol, okay, on which you have voted. So those things will be displayed. The slip will be coming out of VVPAT. For 7 seconds it will be there. So you can see in that time, after 7 seconds, it will automatically cut off and it will go inside. Okay, so you cannot take that VVPAT. That is like a verification. But what happened? Why, if everything is good, this is a process to ensure transparency only, no, and to increase fair and fair elections only. Then what is the issue? Because in the recent times, if you see, normally after voting and all the EVMs will be counted upon, okay, to decide the majority and all. But what happens now, if you see, all VVPATs are not being checked. Randomly, in one constituency, maximum 10% of the VVPATs, randomly they will be checking, okay, whether they have correctly registered their votes or not. So Supreme Court was approved, some people have approached Supreme Court asking that this randomization number has to increase, because we don't know, sometimes EVM malpractices are also so much in news. No? Some parties are saying that government is resorting to malpractices in EVM and they're trying to misuse these EVMs and all. So we want more number of VVPATs to be checked, so that we can ensure more free and fair elections. In this way, the matter went to Supreme Court. So Supreme Court said, we will definitely look into this issue and will say the final one. Okay. So here you have to keep in mind is these things. Okay. Candidate serial number, name, and the symbol will be there. So normally who have developed this VVPAT is also important. 2 PSUs. If you know, answer. Who have developed this VVPAT? This is not a new phenomenon, right? BHELN, good. And another organization is also there. 2 PSUs. Yes. You have that in Hyderabad itself. That PSU is there in Hyderabad. Okay, let's see. Supreme Court, what did it say is recently, it was asked from Election Commission whether this increase in the count of VVPATs have to be considered before the general elections. Do remember, this was first introduced in 2014 Lok Sabha elections. These type of statements can be framed. So they can ask first time EVMs when they were used, first time VVPATs when they were used and all, okay. So you have to remember that VVPAT has a printer as well as status display unit where these slips will be generated and it will be shown out to the voter. So these are the things. So these 3 main things you have to keep in mind. Serial number, name, symbol of the candidate. Okay, 7 seconds and automatically it will fall down. So how VVPAT will be used for verification, I already told you. Okay, so randomly the political parties, you know, in a polling booth, normally different political party people will be there, no? So randomly they will be checking the VVPATs, same number of how many votes are registered in EVMs, whether same number of votes are there in VVPAT or not, they'll check these things, okay? In that way, they'll ensure verification. But now what happened is, this is important is because to verify that whether the votes are given to the proper candidate or not, or if there is any chance of manipulation. To prevent manipulation and increase transparency, the system is introduced, right? So it is auditing the stored votes, so you can say auditing only, no, a type of auditing, and also it is like additional barrier to change or destroy the votes. So you cannot manipulate the votes because your vote is already registered in VVPATs. So voter confidence will increase in the system, right? You can ensure free and fair elections. So these are the positives of VVPAT. Then what are the steps taken? If you have seen, Election Commission of India has spent almost 3,000 crore rupees and it has procured more number of EVMs, okay, or VVPATs I can say. So every elections they are increasing the number of VVPATs. But how many VVPATs you are counting is being the same, but there is more number of VVPATs used. So what happened, EC has conducted an extensive training in the recent times with respect to polling officers also, so that how many of, we are studying civil services and we are knowing these things, but most of the people who cast their vote, they don't know what is VVPAT, how it functions, how you can check your vote and all, right? So that is why Election Commission is giving extensive training and also awareness campaigns to listen into these things. And randomization process has to be increased. Randomization means randomly checking the number of VVPATs and all. So what are the challenges? As VVPATs, any technical machine can be manipulated, right? There is high chance of manipulation normally. So even EVMs also can be manipulated, or there can be some technical glitches. So for example, if there may be beep symbol, normally if you cast your vote, there will be some sound that is generated to show that your vote was registered. But sometimes due to technical glitch also the sound can be there, but you may miss it. Yes or no? So in this situation, you don't know whether your vote is properly registered or not. So in these situations, these things will help us. At the same time, more maintenance is required. When you use more machines, it requires maintenance. It should be ensured that proper storage will be there, and time and complexity also increases. But at the same time, VVPATs cannot be efficiently effective because unless you check all the VVPATs, okay, you don't know. Randomly you are checking, so that may not be completely helpful to resolve all the disputes related to elections and the votes, okay. So what you have to keep in mind? Now tell me, did you remember what is that organization which has developed the VVPATs? ECIL, very good. And BEL, not BHEL, Electronics Limited, okay. These two together have developed VVPATs. So if I give you some time, you will be working your brain, right? Otherwise, you will be keeping it in the sleeping state. You love your brain a lot. Always you don't want to trouble it. Unless UPSC, you have that burden of UPSC in the examination, right? So next, most important topic, that is internationalization of rupee. We have seen globalization, right? India is a globalized economy, right? Since 1991 officially. Okay, globalization means what? What is meaning of the word globalization? Opening up the economy. To whom you are opening up? Goods and services, capital, free flow of man or the people also. Okay, so they can flow freely, and they can also be free flow of technology as well, technological transfers, investments, goods and services, human related resources you can say. So all these can be freely exchanged. That is what we consider as globalization. But why we are discussing about internationalization of rupee is, recently RBI has completed 90 years of its existence, if you know, okay. So it was established on April 1st, 1935 under Government of India Act. Which committee has recommended establishment of RBI? Very good. Hilton Young Committee or Royal Commission on Finance. That is a committee that has recommended to establish RBI. And India became the first colony of British to have a central bank on its own. Okay, so these are certain things. But in the recent, what you can say, awarding ceremony or this inaugural ceremony of RBI's 90 years of existence, Prime Minister has given a new task to RBI. What is the main task of RBI? monetary policy. What is the main objective of monetary policy? Inflation control and ensure economic growth. Inflation control means price stability should be there, yes. Okay. So two things is to control inflation as well as achieve economic growth. This is the main job of RBI. Okay. So but you have another thing now assigned to RBI is Prime Minister has given a call for globalized rupee. Globalized rupee means what? Today, if India and Australia have to trade between them, which is the currency they are using? Why you are not using rupee? Because dollar is widely accepted, right, as a medium of exchange. But Indian rupee is not that much widely accepted because its value is more vulnerable in the markets, right? That is why Prime Minister wants to make our Indian rupee globalized or internationalized. That means in the future, if it happens, internationalization of rupee will make two countries transacting using Indian rupee also. That possibility also can happen. Okay, but whether the Indian rupee is having that potential as of now, what are the things you required to have internationalization of rupee? Good. Capital account convertibility should be there. We have partial capital account convertibility and full current account convertibility. I'll come to that in a while. Leave them. But what is the most important thing is our fiscal deficit should be within the limits. Okay. So according to some studies, you can say the fiscal deficit should be less than 3.5% in case if you wanted to internationalize your currency. This is the first most thing they said. 3.5% it should be there, fiscal deficit. But what is the fiscal deficit in India now? Around 5%. This is more, no? Okay. And inflation should be, very good. Inflation also should be less than 5%. This is also one proper thing to have, internationalization of rupee. Then what should be the another thing? Revenue deficit. No? Think in a broader way. In broader economic terms, what are most essential things to have our rupee stabilized? Very good. Exports. Then, currently we have $700 billion worth exports. It is expected to reach $900 billion in a while. So that is okay. Then, forex reserves. Okay. How much we have? $642 billion. This much amount of forex reserves we have. Okay. So, if you have certain economic parameters within the limits or how much it is required if you have, then you can have a chance of internationalizing the rupee. Okay. But it takes a lot of time also because China, you know, that started the idea of internationalization of rupee right from 2008 onwards. 2008 onwards it is trying. Okay. But because of its measures, if you have seen, till 2024, how much is the Chinese currency that was used in global trade, you know? Less than 5%. Since 16 years, it is trying to make its currency. What is Chinese currency? Yuan or renminbi, we call. Okay. So, that currency they're trying to internationalize. In 16 years, they could make only 5% of the global trade. That means, if India starts now, how much time it will take? And if you see in the global trade, India's percentage is only 1 to 2%. In Indian rupees, I mean. We are trading only 1 to 2 rupees, 1 to 2% of global trade in Indian rupees. But when you compare it with dollar, how much is the global trade happening in dollar? More than 50%. What are the other currencies used? Pound, euro, okay, sterling, pound and euro we have. So these are lower to the dollar only, but dollar is widely accepted an exchange medium because why? Why dollar is most preferable medium of exchange? Very good. It is having stability. That currency stability is the most important thing. Okay. And another important parameter to have internationalization of rupee is there should be free flow of capital also. See, in India we are having more investments coming, but the same thing is not happening in the opposite way. No, we are not having easy free flow of rupees in outside India. There are some restrictions. We are having FDIs, FIIs coming into India. This way it is fine, but this way it is not going out. So this is also one restriction which is hurting our ambitions to make rupee internationalized. So certain things have to be fulfilled, then only we can realize our ambition of internationalization of Indian rupee. Okay, so this is the main topic which we are going to discuss. So what is currency internationalization means? Instead of using dollar, we can use rupee only. So what will be the benefit? All the time, if you trade trading is very important. No, you cannot escape trade now. So if you trade between any country, now you are paying in dollars. That means you are using your forex reserves and you are paying in dollars. That means all the time a depletion of forex reserves happen. No, only if you export more and import less only, that situation will not arise. But all the time we are importing more and exporting less, right? That is the feature of Indian economy right now. So that is the main situation where we are getting troubled. But in case if you are exchanging in rupee only, then what happens? You need not depend on dollars. Yes or no? If the currency, if you see all the time, rupee is appreciating or depreciating? It is depreciating, no? What is depreciation? Appreciation, you know, right? So now, how much is the dollar value in rupee? 83 or something, right? Okay, 82 or 83 around it can be. So that means previously we have 60 rupees, 70 rupees, but now you're paying more rupees to buy same amount of dollar. That means we are losing our Indian currency more, right? So these type of problems can be bypassed if you can internationalize the rupee. Okay, that is the main objective. At the same time, when you are internationalizing the rupee, you can trade with more countries. Two things will be there here. One is political reasons, economical reasons will be there. Economical reasons means like forex reserves and all. Political means many times international relations are involved in geopolitics. If you see, for example, you are buying most of the oil from Russia. Okay, and if you have seen after Russian invasion of Ukraine, what happened? US said Russia's whatever the market is there, that was lost, no? So what happened? All the European countries said, we are not going to buy any oil and gas from Russia. So they have lost their market. Then they said, if India wants to buy Russian oil and gas, we will be providing it at cheaper rates. And rupee-ruble trade they offered, means in the local currency trade. But what happened? US said, if you trade in Russia or in oil, if you buy Russian oil, then sanctions can be imposed on India. Means adhering to US sanctions, should you stop buying oil from Russia, or leaving US, you have to buy oil from Russia? This becomes a politically challengeable thing, no? Yes or no? It is very difficult because we want USSR together all the time in the support of India. Or the same thing happened even with the case of Iran also. When Chabahar port and all these things are developing, US doesn't have good relations with Iran. They say you should not trade with Iran. Yes or no? That is why we started distancing somewhat from Iran, and China is trying to better its relations with Iran, right, in the recent times. So this always involves different political aspects also. So if you want to trade with these countries, if you are having dollar, US says, I'll impose sanctions. But in case if you are trading in local currency only, these type of things will not arise, no? So in these ways, both in economic aspects as well as political aspects also, internationalization of rupee will definitely help us. But it is in the long run, we have some issues which has to be solved. Then only we can have this concept realized. Okay. Before that, you just understand what is internationalization of rupee means. Use of a currency outside the borders also, not within the country, because in the Indian market will be using rupee only, but outside India also, now only few countries are using this, like Sri Lanka, UAE, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Iran. These countries are accepting rupee. Okay, so as I told you, after Russian invasion of Ukraine, we bought Russian oil, no? But now what happened is Russia started saying that we don't want this rupee-ruble trade. Why? Because they have more number of rupees with them, which became useless because our rupee is appreciating with respect to dollar. What they will do with Indian rupees? When this currency value is falling down, what they have to do with all that rupee? If rupee is depreciating and it is having a good value with respect to dollar, then they can do something with the rupee, no? Now it is becoming useless for Russian people also. So the demand for rupee will almost decrease in these situations. If you increase the demand for rupee, then only internationalization can happen. That is the most important thing you have to keep in mind. So demand that users in other countries have the currency for the Indian rupee. So how many people are demanding your currency will automatically reflect in internationalization of that currency. Most people are preferring dollar because it is less volatile. It is not easily unstable. Okay, that is the main reason. So if you see, it can be used in international trade, it can be used as reserve currency, like in the forex reserves we are using dollars, no? In that way it can be used, or it can be in medium of indirect exchange, or even currency substitution also it can be used. Okay, that means if you have dollars, you can exchange that in any country. But if you have rupees, not all countries will accept it, right? In that way, currency substitution also will be there. One of the advantage of internationalization of currency. Then if you see, what happened is the process where increased use of rupees will happen in cross-border transactions. Okay, outside India also, if you can transact in rupee, that is called internationalization of rupee. So it can be used for import as well as export, and even capital account transactions or cross-border investments also. If easily rupee is allowed, then we call it as internationalization of rupee. Then you can see these are the things which are associated. Economic progress should be good. That means economic stability should be there in the country first. Then only we can have this thing. Then we can have good forex market. Forex reserve should be at a high level. Then currency settlement procedure should be there. Currency swap agreements also will sign, no, sometimes. Then full convertibility of the currency on capital account. And what is the committee that has recommended full capital account convertibility? No. Tarapur committee. It has recommended that what is capital account, current account. I hope you have some idea. Otherwise, again, I have given the slides. I know that some people may not have also. So with respect to current account, where we have trade, remittances, these things, right? So in that we have full convertibility. But in capital account means what we have under capital account? Borrowings, investments, FDIs, FIS, no. In that we don't have full capital account convertible, only partial convertibility is there now. So now if you convert it into full convertibility, then that can help in internationalization of rupee. This is the one most important requirement. Then cross-border transfer of funds also without any restrictions. There should not be any restrictions at the same time. So these are the currencies which are now accepted as internationalized currencies. You can say one is US dollar, euro, Japanese yen, okay, and pound and sterling. These along with Chinese renminbi are part of IMF's SDR, Special Drawing Rights Basket, if you have remembered. So China's efforts to make its currency renminbi is also limited only, as I told you, because its global trade part is only 5%, not more than that. So even it is trying to internationalize currency. So these are the things, a brief thing from your static part. Capital account means investments in the form of FDI, FIIs. Borrowings, external borrowings means, you know, NRI deposits and all we have. So ECB's external commercial borrowings we have. So these are external borrowings. External assistance means from other governments and aid, whatever we get. So these are all part of capital account. Current account means trade in goods and services, remittances, transfer payments, all this. Okay. In this aspect, we have full current account convertibility. But in this, we don't have full convertibility, only partial convertibility is there now. If you convert this partial to full in capital account, that can help in internationalization of rupee. Clear with this? Then, if you see, dollar accounts almost 88% of international trade. Rupee, if you see, it accounts for 1 to 2% only. I told you, 1.7%. China is 5% almost, renminbi. So, India currently has full convertibility in current account. That means in exports and imports, you are converting full Indian currency. But in capital account, we are not having full convertibility. There are some ceilings, okay? Government is imposing some limits. Then India is allowing only full convertibility on current account. That has to be even with the case of capital account. Then it can be done. What are the need for alternatives? I told you economic sanctions. That is the main thing, political challenge we have. At the same time, we should always check what is the value of Indian currency with dollar and all. So in the economic context also, it is very important. So when these dependence on dollars increase, inflationary tendencies also will hurt an Indian economy, In those situations, it will further depreciate Indian currency. But instead, if you internationalize, it doesn't depend on dollar, So with our own currency, you can have stability in the economy. So these type of things can be addressed. So India would not depend on trade for US dollars. So this is what internationalization benefit happens. Then why US dollar is having this exorbitant privilege means because of mainly these reasons. Size of US economy. US is now which largest economy? first largest, right? China is in second. Then third is Japan. Fourth, Germany. We are about to reach third, okay? And we are in the fifth place, no? So to expand our economic ambitions also, we are saying that we wanted to become 5 trillion economy, or we wanted to achieve third largest economy status. All these things can happen if you are internationalization of rupee. That means you can decrease your costs and increase your returns. So that is one main thing. And trade and financial networks also. Most of the countries are believing the dollar is easy for them. And liquidity of US financial market is high, and macroeconomic stability and currency convertibility is there in US. That is also helping. And dollar dominance is because lack of other viable options. If other options are there, dollar doesn't have that much craze, right? This is another option, okay? So what are the obvious challenges to US dollar? Always challenge will be from China only, right? So that is only where politically, economically US can be challenged. Okay, Chinese renminbi is the only challenge we can see in the nearest future. But what are the advantages? This will be the most important thing. These type of things can be asked in prelims. They can ask, as Prime Minister himself gave a call for internationalization of rupee, they can ask what can be the possible benefits, okay, in prelims also. So first thing is, it will appreciate currency value. Okay, instead of depreciation, we'll have appreciation. That means demand for rupee in the global level will increase. Then mitigating the exchange rate volatility, okay, this will be reduced. Savings in Indian forex reserves, you need not spend more in dollar currency conversions and all. Circumvent sanctions of US with respect to Iran, Russia and other countries. India can reach the global power status in terms of economic things also. And repaying external sovereign debt will become easy. Yes or no? If you are paying in dollars, you have to pay more. But if you are paying in rupee, it is easy for us, no? Then financial budget deficit of the government also will be reduced, fiscal deficit and all. Access to international finance will become more easy for us. At the same time, capital also will be easily available in the country, whether it be from international or from the country itself. What are the negatives then? Everything will have positive and negative, right? What will be the negative? Vulnerability, yes, right? So first most thing is, what is the impact of monetary policy? If you are making it, okay, so how much is the monetary policy impact on internationalization is still not known, okay. So whether it will definitely increase the money supply or in the economy or not, these things are not clearly known. Outflow of hot money. What is hot money? Hot money means what? In terms of, what is that? Now, in what terms you are having this hot money? In what form? I'm not asking about currency. In which form you are using this? See, this hot money has created some crisis also, no? Southeast Asian economic crisis, no? I'm asking which currency is used there? Dollar itself, no? Why you are taking that much time? I'm asking. You didn't understood the question, okay? So outflow of hot money means what? Whatever the investments that comes, volatile investments, that will be easily outflowed. See, normally if you see the same thing, FIIs will be volatile, right? Whenever the dollar value increases, okay? So they'll be taking the money from all the developing economies and they'll try to invest in US economy. And in case if rupee strengthens, then what happened? They'll again put into Indian economy, no? In this way, hot money outflow will also be one negative thing. In case if rupee, if it is accepted as international currency and if it is subjected to any instability, then these type of outflows also can happen in the economy. Then conflict with domestic monetary policy, this is the same thing you can say, highlighting external shocks sometimes, okay. So for example, external shocks like any COVID-19, Russian invasion of Ukraine, if these things happen, so what will be the impact? How we have to withstand? This is also one challenge we have. Then exchange rate volatility also will become a problem, okay. So these have more positives and less number of negatives, but it will take lot of time. It is not that easy. In the coming years, we can internationalize within a short period of time. So what are the steps needed is, first one, capital account convertibility should be there, and there should be suitable environment in regulatory mannerism also, you can say. Then bilateral and multilateral trade agreements, you should increase with the countries. Recently, if you have seen Sri Lanka, Nepal, they accepted UPI payments, rupee cards and all. In this way, we have to increase our bilateral trade with many countries. Then it will become easy for internationalizing the rupee. At the same time, you have to improve the economic credit rating agencies you know, no, there are some you have Finch rating agency and different things, triple E, like this we will be awarded some rating, those things have to be improved. If you are having confidence, then only these ratings will be given in a positive way, that means investors should feel confident in Indian rupee, then only it can boost our fundamentals. So this is what you have to keep in mind. So can it become means, definitely it can become, but some negatives are there that has to be you can say overcome. You can say these countries are currently accepting Indian rupee now to trade. For example, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, UAE, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, UK, as well as Nepal and Bhutan. In Nepal and Bhutan, directly you can give Indian rupee and you can buy anything. Okay, in that way. That means these countries should be widened. If you are encouraging more countries to trade in Indian rupee, definitely you can internationalize the rupee along with some domestic things which you have to overcome. So this is what you have to keep in mind. Clear? Then most importantly, another article we have is Article 292 and 293 of Indian Constitution. Why this is in news? In terms of borrowings of the state government, no? Why? Kerala went to Supreme Court, okay, with respect to on the grounds of Article 131, because now this is a dispute between center and states. Yes, Article 131 says original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court with respect to disputes between center and states. So under Article 131, Kerala government has filed a case against center in Supreme Court saying that center is not allowing us to borrow. We are requiring more money and center is not allowing us to expand our borrowing limits. So this matter went to Supreme Court. What did Supreme Court say? It did not give any interim relief to the Kerala government, but what did it say? It said we'll constitute a constitutional bench to examine this issue, because such disputes for the first time went to the Supreme Court of India. So here in this context you need to know what is Article 292 and 293. Before we discuss 292 and 293, you should understand normally if states borrow more, okay, what happens if they borrow more and more money? What are the negative things we have? Normally, see, that is what I have to discuss. 292 is for central government borrowing capacities and we have 293 for state government. If state government has to borrow anything, it has to guarantee consolidated fund of the state. It cannot guarantee the central government. Okay, but without the permission of the central government, it cannot borrow from abroad. So there are some conditions imposed. So first, most importantly is the Constitution of India itself through these two articles has given some limits for both the central government and state government in terms of borrowings. Then we have FRBM Act of 2003 also. Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act 2003. This law also has imposed some limits on the borrowing capacities of center as well as states. That this percentage of borrowing only should be done from your side, not more than that. That means both constitutional and statutory backing is there with respect to borrowing limits for both the center and states. So what the things you need to know is, when states borrow more, what happens? Increased interest payments will be there, no? You have to pay more and more interest, right? Yes or no? That burden will be there on the population of the state itself, right? Again, in the form of taxes, you have to pay more. Then, increased borrowing cost. In case if you are having more and more borrowings, it will increase the borrowing cost in the future, right? Yes or no? The interest payments will be hiked and all. So you have to get loans also at a very higher cost compared to the previous one. In that way, borrowing costs will increase. Then it will increase inflationary tendencies in the economy, right? Inflationary tendencies means if government is taking more and more money, where do it spend? It will spend on the people only, no? That means it is increasing money supply in the economy. If money supply is there, what happens? Inflation will be there. So that means if you are borrowing more, then inflation also can be one impact. Then, very good. Crowding out of private investments. What is this the term, meaning of the term crowding out and crowding in? Yes, good. Crowding out of private investment means when states are borrowing more and they are only investing more. What happens? Private will be moving out, no? Private, whatever the investment they wanted to put in, that will be moved out. Yes or no? That is called crowding out of private investments. That is also a negative impact. If government, see, normally private investments more should be encouraged because government has many obligations to be fulfilled. So more private investments should be encouraged. But if government is only resorting to more and more borrowings and investments, then it will definitely result in crowding out of private investments. Okay, this is one challenge. Then downgrading of credit ratings. You know, when you borrow more and more, your credit ratings will be downgraded, no? That means in the future you may not get loans easily, or the funds will not be easily available for you. Yes or no? For the state governments or anyone. So this is also one challenge you may face. So like this, there are some negatives associated with more and more borrowing by the state government. Clear so far? But why states are resorting again? In spite of having these negatives also, why states are borrowing or it is trying to borrow more? Previously, if you have remembered, Telangana government also asked center to increase the borrowing limit. Now it is Kerala's turn. Next, another state also may request. Why states are interested here? Because two things are there. One is states are the main governments which have to spend on social services like salaries, pensions, all these things. No, they have to address large population in this context, social things as well as developmental things also. Developmental things means infrastructural projects, okay, or any other thing, education, health, all these things, okay, whatever you spend. So these are the immediate things which the state government has to address, no? So when these things are increasing, automatically they require more money. But what happened previously is with the introduction of GST, what the states used to get that got replaced with GST, no? That means their revenue has fallen down. They're not getting maximum compensation from the center in the form of GST compensation. At the same time, their revenue got decreased. The case what happened with Kerala is, you know, Kerala is a tourist-based state, no? Tourism-based. It depends heavily on tourism. But after COVID-19, what happened? Tourism sector has witnessed a sharp fall in Kerala. That is one major factor where they have lost revenue. At the same time, if you have remembered previously, Kerala, most of the Keralites, they used to go and settle in the West Asian countries and they used to send remittances. Remittances will be again, that means the money they send from abroad will be used to buy something in Kerala only. In that way, economic growth was propelled in Kerala. Most of the economy of Kerala will be run by remittances itself. But what happened in the recent times? They're not, most of the people are not just limiting themselves to West Asian countries, but they're trying to settle down in different countries like Australia, US, Canada now. The trend has changed now. So when they're settling there, they don't send remittances, no. They'll be settling there. So the inflow of remittances into India from Keralites is decreasing. This is one factor. Tourism impact is second factor. And third factor is, you know, Kerala has high literacy rate. Most of the people are educated. So when they're so qualified, the salary expected by them also will be high. Yes or no? So as they're asking more and more salaries, government has to pay more and more. So in that way, government is losing, it is getting less in return from different aspects. So Kerala has been in economic trouble for these reasons. So it has to spend more on social service. See, you have two things, capital receipts you have and revenue receipts you have, which is good for the country. When you spend more on capital expenditure, that is good because in the return, in the long term, you get some benefit because of what you spend today. Okay, if you construct a dam or infrastructure project, in future you may get some benefit out of it. But if you spend in revenue expenditure, like salaries, pensions and other things, you don't get anything in return, right? The government will be losing only. So these expenditures should be less and you should have more capital expenditure. But what is the case with Kerala? It is having the reverse. That means it is having less capital expenditure and more revenue expenditure. This is also troubling the Kerala economy. That is why they wanted the center to lift maximum limit. Okay, so because previously, so what this article 292 says is, In case if Government of India can borrow, first thing you have to keep in mind is Government of India can borrow from within the country, outside the country also. Inside the country we call internal debt, outside the country we call external debt. That is allowed for Government of India. Second thing you have to keep in mind is Article 292 says that in case if you want to borrow, okay, the Government of India, it has to guarantee on Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, Consolidated Fund of India has to be kept as a guarantee if central government has to take any money either from internal or external sources. So how much they wanted to borrow or how much they can keep as a guarantee, this limits will be fixed by whom? Parliament has to approve this. It is not central government or finance minister or someone else's choice. Okay, it has to be decided by Parliament by law. Parliament should enact a law stating that I am allowing this much amount of borrowing money, this much amount of money can be borrowed and this much amount of money they can guarantee on the consolidated fund. Who is the guardian of consolidated fund? Again, Parliament only, no? So that is the main restriction. The same case happens with state government also, but state governments cannot borrow externally. Do remember it. Okay, only internally they can borrow and the same time they can guarantee on the consolidated fund of the state. Same, state legislature only can limit here with respect to how much they can borrow and how much they can guarantee. But in case if any state government, do remember this most important provision, in case if any state government has an outstanding loan or pending loan with the central government, then central government cannot ask the state government to borrow. Means if they have any pending loan already which is not fulfilled from the state government, then central government can restrict state government to borrow further. Okay, this is what the provision there, because it is the duty of the central government to protect the states from any external aggressions, internal things, internal disturbances. At the same time, financially also the center should protect the states. That is why Constitution has kept some safeguards. Otherwise, if states will become what you can say insolvent or bankrupt, that is what, if you see most of the persons are opining, Kerala government itself has become bankrupt. Who will take then? It will become difficult, no? And interestingly, you know, what the central government is spending, if you see, it is around almost, I can say, like 1800 crores of rupees. For example, if you think, almost more than that 8 times the states are spending. More than what central government is spending, more than that 8 times more they're spending. So from where they'll get this money, from where they'll be fulfilling this money, who are going to pay? You may see in different states, even for paying the salaries of the employees also, they're not having money. They're taking from RBI, they're taking from central government, or they're borrowing from other ways. So fiscal issues are becoming a very troublesome situation between center states. So in this way, this matter went to the Supreme Court. Clear with this? So what happened is, why Supreme Court has refused to give any relief is because, first thing is, there is first challenge to center's borrowing ceiling imposition, which is given by the Constitution of India itself. So this is the first time this matter cannot be decided by 1 judge, 2 judge or 3 judge bench, as it has been imposed by the Constitution itself. Supreme Court clearly said it has to be referred by constitutional bench only. You know, constitutional bench will be there with 5 judges minimum, no? So as it is involving some constitutional aspects, it should be referred by constitutional bench. That is why I did not say I will give any interim relief for the Kerala government. Then acknowledgement of union's argument that excessive borrowing. Who will pay again? Now you are borrowing, but who will pay? There should be some restriction, no? So that is why this is one thing. And referring the state's plea to the constitutional bench. On these grounds, they have not given any relief for the Kerala government. Right? Then what is 292? I have explained. Borrowing powers of the central government. So either within India or outside, promising on consolidated fund of the India, guaranteeing both, means how much amount they have to borrow and how much guarantee also have to be fixed by Parliament only by law. It is not central government's choice, do remember. Then 293 is with respect to state governments. Okay. See, only within India. Here is the trap. UPSC plays here. Okay. They can ask abroad also. It is not possible for any state government. Then upon the consolidated fund of the state. Who can be fixing the maximum limits? It is the state legislature. Same like the Parliament here. This is a differentiation you have to keep in mind. Then central government can make loans to any state or give guarantees also in case if they require, like this what they have asked. Central government can give any loans also if it has any money, or it can take from RBI and it can give also. But normally what happens is, see, in case if central government has to borrow, what happens? We have discussed the impacts of more borrowings by the state, no? Negative impacts we have discussed. One point I just want to add there is, in case if state government or central government has to borrow, what they will do? From where normally they easily get money? Banks, no? That is the easiest source. What they will do? Government will issue G6 or government securities to banks and they'll get the money. So if more and more borrowings happen from the government side, then what happens? Banks will have more and more G6 with them. That means more money of the banks will be going to the government itself. But what happens is, if the same money goes out to the public or market, they'll get better interest rate. But on G6, what the government will be paying and what the banks will be getting, the interest rate will be comparatively less. That means it is not a win-win situation for the bank, right? If the same money is given to the outside the government, they'll get better interest rate. But if they give more loans to the government itself, then what happens? Banks also will be financially impacted. That is also one negative impact associated here. Clear? So, do remember this. Sometimes if state governments require, central government can give loans also, because they cannot borrow from abroad, only within India. So state government cannot raise loan without the consent of the center if it is having any outstanding part of the loan to the center in the respect of which guarantee is given by the center. That means in case if central government itself has given any loan to the state, or if it has guaranteed any loan to the state by the state government, if that is pending already, then central government cannot give any permission for the state to borrow more. First, ఇది clear చేసి అది చేయాలి కదా. Yes or no? That is what happens. This is the most important provision which can be asked. And then, as I told you in the case, spending priorities of union and states are different, because the people immediately will get some things from the state government only. You know, they have huge expectations from the state government. The same case will not be with the center. Yes or no? So when you don't have drinking water, or when you don't have proper essential things, whom will you question? MLA or MP? MLA, no. That means spending priorities for the union and the states will be different most of the times. That is why states have to borrow more and they're spending more than the center. Okay, accountability issues. Then, as I told you, states are borrowing and the budget expenditures, if you see, almost 8 times more than center they're borrowing and they're spending. Okay, this is not a good situation. At the same time, I told you what is the case of Kerala. Tourism, remittances, paying off high salaries because of educated persons. So these are the different factors which have contributed to current economic crisis in Kerala. Okay. And then borrowing by the state government of Kerala, what they wanted to do, I already told you. They have been asking, because if you see under FRBM Act, they have clearly said that FRBM Act was brought in 2003. No, at that time they said maximum 60% of GDP only can be borrowed. Subsequently, this has to be reduced to 40% by 2024. And central government has placed a restriction that state governments cannot borrow more than 3.5% of GSDP, gross state domestic product of the state. Okay, so this limit is for the central government. This is for the state governments, 3.5% of their GSDP, gross state domestic product. Okay, like this, certain borrowing restrictions are there. And they wanted more borrowings. They don't want to take from the center. They're saying that we want more market borrowings, for which center again has to give permission. So with respect to this expenditure also, they are spending more on social services rather than developmental things. That is why there is a case of worry with respect to Kerala and its borrowings. Okay, this is all the issue you have to keep in mind. So what Supreme Court will decide, we'll see in the future. Okay. Then the next important topic is ADR, Association for Democratic Reforms, you know, one of the important organization which was formed by some graduates from IIMs, you know. This was formed by Indian Institute of Management graduates, this association. So why they have given some data with respect to our Bharat Ratna lunar gada. Evaru? 545 Bharat Ratna lunar MPs. Yes or no? who are running the country in a very good way. Why are you laughing? ఏంటి కాదా? వాళ్ళందరికీ ఇంప్లిసిట్గా ఇస్తారు, ఎక్స్ప్లిసిట్గా ఇవ్వరు భారతరత్న అనే టైటిల్. ఓకే, so we'll see how much well they have performed with respect to this. So they have given with respect to MPs, sitting MPs, what is their record, okay, in what aspects they have recorded, you know. So criminalization of politics, this is what they have said. That means most of the sitting MPs have, at least 40% of the MPs stated in their affidavits that they have criminal cases. Okay, జాతి రత్నాలు భారత రత్నాల్లో ఏది బెటరో మీరే ఇవ్వండి. అందుకే ఈసారి ఇంకో 1 month మ్యాక్సిమం 1 month 10 days ఉందేమో, కాస్ట్ చేసేటప్పుడు ఓటు కొంచెం ఆలోచించి కాషియస్గా వేయండి. ఎవరికి పడితే వాళ్ళకి అమ్మ చెప్పింది నాన్న చెప్పిందని నో అఫిలియేషన్స్, ప్రొఫైల్ చెక్ చేసి ఎవరు బెస్ట్ అనిపిస్తే వేయండి, లేదంటే ఇంకొక ఆప్షన్ కూడా ఉంది మనకి. ఓకే, అదైనా చేయండి. బీ కాషియస్. సో వాట్ ఆర్ ద మేజర్ రీజన్స్ వై వీ హ్యావ్ దిస్ క్రిమినలైజేషన్ ఆఫ్ పాలిటిక్స్? Criminalization of politics means what? If more and more persons with criminal records are entering into politics, we call as criminalization of politics. This is not a good sign for the economy. So economy, not democracy, I'm saying. It is not at all a good sign because the people, okay, what they'll do, వాళ్ళని వాళ్ళు కాపాడుకోవడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేస్తారా, లేకపోతే మనకి ఏమైనా మంచి చేస్తారా? పవర్లో ఉంటేనే కదా వాళ్ళకు ఉండే బెనిఫిట్స్, పవర్ ఉండి వాళ్ళు ఏదైనా వాళ్ళకి సేవ్ చేసుకోవడానికి ఆపర్చునిటీ, మనకు ఏదో సేవ్ చేయడానికి కాదు వాళ్ళు వెళ్ళేది అక్కడికి. సో ద మేజర్ రీజన్ ఇస్ అన్హోలీ నెక్సెస్ బిట్వీన్ బ్యూరోక్రసీ అండ్ పొలిటీషియన్స్, ద మెయిన్ రీజన్. ఓకే, సో యూ నో అగైన్ MPs and bureaucrats, they are closely, MPs or even MLAs, I mean here, I don't mean any particular thing. So they have very good nexus between them, because of which, you know, if you make a call, file will be cleared, or the case will not be registered, or your work will be done. So they have a good nexus, which is not a good sign. This is one main thing. Then religion and caste is also playing a major thing in choosing the electorate. Okay, so this is one main thing. Vote bank politics, you know. Then ineffective legal provisions. We have Representation of People's Act and all, but still those are not stopping these persons from entering into the democratic system. Then lack of transparency and accountability. We don't show this transparency and accountability, no. We are not electing on certain grounds. So these are the things which are making some criminals enter into politics. That is the main highlight. So what did they find is, see, out of the 514 sitting Lok Sabha MPs, they have analyzed 225 members have declared criminal cases. You can see 44%. This is not at all a good sign, right? 44% having criminal cases. See, if you see the educational background, age and gender, 73% of the people are having graduate, higher or graduational, more than that qualification, and only 15% of the sitting MPs are women. Okay, these type of data you can quote, okay, when they have asked with respect to better functioning of parliament and all, you can give some data, because in the recent times we have women reservation bill passed, no? So you can quote such data. Then state-wise distribution, if you see, more than 50% of MPs are coming from Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana. They have criminal charges. Okay, in this also we have a record, good record. Then party-wise distribution, BJP and Congress have more number of billionaires. Okay, so what you have to get is, apart from citizenship, 25-30 years, you need to have good background. Suitcase ఎన్ని ఉంటే అంత ఎక్కువ డామినెన్స్ ఉంటుంది పార్టీలో, yes or no? Then highest declared assets is 5% of the people who are analyzed. They said they have more than 100 crores. ఈ 100 crores ని టార్గెట్ ఏంటి? 1000 crores. ఇదైతే తర్వాత ఇక అది నెవర్ ఎండింగ్ స్టోరీ. This is what they wanted to do. Then other key issues highlighted are electoral bonds, you know. In this, ADR has played an important role. They filed their case and they fought this. Electoral bond scheme was nullified because of their contribution. With respect to election commissioner's appointment also. So center should not have only say like that they have registered a case, no, with respect to that also they have fined. An increase in registered unrecognized parties. So this is also not a good sign. Okay, we should have recognized registered parties, but more parties are registering, but they're not performing well in the polls and they're not getting the things. Okay, so this is also one issue which was raised by ADR. Some data I have given. So what is the issue of criminalization of politics? What will happen? The main question is safety and security of the country and the society. Okay. So how much safe it will be there in the hands of criminals? That is the main thing. So do we have any law means? We have certain laws like Representation of People's Act, Indian Penal Code, we have Constitution itself has given some provisions, okay, but still those are not having any enough safeguards. Then low conviction rate for the MPs, this is one main thing. Situation in the police stations is again, okay, police station ki ellagane lekapothe arrest cheyagane em ostadi, heart stroke ostadi, brain stroke ostadi, heat stroke ostadi, anni ostayi kada, immediate ga ostayi, appada varaku em undavu. Then impact on democracy, yes or no? This is definitely impacting our democracy. Then what are the measures you can suggest is, there is Ogra committee in 1993 said, okay, the people with criminal records, they should be barred from elections at least for a certain period of time. Cooling limit anedi pettali ani it has recommended. So law commission in 179th report also it said. So some laws we have, we have Representation of People's Act 1951. So criminal cases undi accused convict aite ganaka if 2 years or more imprisonment unte, they cannot contest for 6 more years, disqualified. Lily Thomas case, Rahul Gandhi, we have seen, same thing here. Right to Information Act 2005. So this is also, through this also you can know what is the track record of that person or the criminal record. In case if they fail to lodge their criminal cases or the election expenditure and all these things, then they can be disqualified, okay, from the contest of elections. So these are the legal frameworks which we have. Then so what Supreme Court has given judgments in this issue in different years, we'll see now. So here you can see 2002, it said that every candidate contesting elections should declare his criminal and financial records with educational qualifications. That is the first step of cleansing the politics done by Supreme Court. Then in 2005, a sitting MP will be disqualified or MLA will be disqualified in case he was convicted for imprisonment more than 2 years. This is what we have seen. Section, which section? Representation of People's Act, Lily Thomas case. 8 clause 3, okay, of Representation of People's Act says, if any sitting MP or MLA is sentenced for 2 years or more imprisonment, immediately he will be disqualified to contest election for next 6 years. Okay, he cannot contest. Then in 2014, Supreme Court has accepted Law Commission recommendations and said that any trial against sitting MP, MLA should be concluded within 1 year. Means they have given some timeline, no? And they also have asked special courts also should be established to look into the cases, because if normal cases are deciding these criminal cases and all, it is taking a lot of time. In the meantime, they are enjoying the tenures, 5-year tenure also easily passed. So they said even special courts also, if government is like it can enable or it can support the financial mechanism of the special courts, then even that setup is welcomed by the Supreme Court of India. So that faster clearance of these cases will happen and they can easily be decided. So this is one regard. Then, as I told you, special courts were established by central government. 12 courts were established to decide cases against MPs and MLAs. In 2021, what happened? Political parties have to update the details on the websites and social media platforms about their candidates with respect to criminal cases and all, and the reasons why they have selected them and not giving tickets, those also. But how many parties are doing this? Again. Okay. So recently Supreme Court said these things have to be mandated. Otherwise, you cannot implement this. If you just issue some guidelines, no one will be following. So in this regard, we have this. So you have to remember ADR is a non-partisan, non-governmental organization, NGO, which was formed in 1999 by professors from Indian Institute of Management. Okay, and ADR's goal is electoral political reforms, empowering the electorate, greater accountability of political parties, inner party democracy and transparency. So in respect, this is working. Okay, you can quote this even in ethics also. In transparency, accountability, you can give these examples. Okay, then next important article from environment is convening Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So what is this with respect to is, the name itself is suggesting with respect to biodiversity. This is a major outcome of COP15 to UN Convention on Biological Diversity. This is a framework. So what they have agreed in this framework, certain goals they have kept for themselves. So 4 goals which they wanted to achieve by 2050. In certain targets they wanted to achieve by 2030. Within the goal, you have sub-targets like that, okay? So what is the main objective is, at least 30% of biodiversity has to be conserved. Terrestrial, marine, aquatic, everything, okay? So they have included, that means whatever the biodiversity is there in these different spheres, that has to be conserved. 30% at least has to be conserved from whatever the threats we are facing by 2030. That is the first most goal they have kept. And then they wanted to decrease the habitat loss or the biodiversity loss that is happening. Third, they wanted to reduce the use of pesticides by 2030, at least some percentage, so that biodiversity, if you have remembered, I told you in the previous class, with respect to climate change, okay, you have one body. What is that body? IPCC, right? Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. With respect to biodiversity, also have mentioned one organization which will report with respect to biodiversity. It also gives data about pollinators. I told you also, I do remember that I have discussed that in class. 5-letter word, like abbreviation I'm saying. No. That has given a data with respect to pollinators, bees, these are the pollinators, there is a gradual decline in pollinators. If that happens, what happens? Biodiversity will be reduced, If pollinators are pollinating, then only we can have diversity, right? In plants or anything. So they have given data. I have discussed about that organization. Not in the recent times, no. Very long back. I do remember as first and second class. Again, that is the homework. Okay? Check about that organization. That is with respect to biodiversity, same like IPCC, with respect to UNFCCC. I discussed the same thing on that day. That organization. Okay? So these are the things where you have to cover. So what happened is, as this organization, see, this particular framework was adopted to conserve biodiversity. Recently, a study conducted, what they identified is, under this framework, what we have given is, mainly you have to increase more number of protected areas to conserve biodiversity. Protected areas means national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, tiger reserves. So if you have to increase more protected areas to conserve biodiversity, indigenous people or the tribal people who are living in these protected areas, they're becoming displaced or they're losing their traditional rights. That is what the recent study have identified. That means in the name of biodiversity, sometimes if you have to conserve, then what happens? You have to implement strict rules and regulations. Then what happens? These people are getting displaced, because if you see, in almost 106 national parks which we have in India, 89 national parks have some tribal community which is associated with the national park. That means they're living within the, or they're dependent on the national park or the particular area, okay, in some way. But if you start preserving in the name of biodiversity or conserving, these people will be displaced, It will increase corporatization and it will also decrease these people's living abilities and all, because tribals are more connected with nature. They don't have another living way and all. So this is what recently identified, because across the world they have conducted some study, and in some countries like Indonesia, Cambodia, they have identified that when tribals are displaced from selected protected areas, their livelihood opportunities became very narrowed down. So the same case happened even with case of India also. If you have remembered, what is the national park or tiger reserve where we wanted to reintroduce cheetah? Cheetah. Kuno National Park is the first thing, but previously Supreme Court did not agree there. That is why we have shifted to Kuno. Initially, one national park or tiger reserve was identified by the government that this is ideal thing, but Supreme Court did not agree, because again their tiger population is also significant, so it will lead to conflicts between tiger and cheetah. So they said you have to choose another way. Yes, Nauradehi. Have you remembered Nauradehi National Park or tiger reserve we have in Madhya Pradesh? So when they thought of reintroducing cheetah, most of the tribal people who are living there, they were also relocated to some other place. Okay. So in this way, some examples, even in case of one wildlife sanctuary in Rajasthan also, the same thing happened. So when in the name, okay, or if you can say even with respect to Pench Tiger Reserve, when we are interlinking the rivers that is getting submerged, no. So at that time, some tribal communities got displaced. So in this name of biodiversity conservation, it was identified that most of the people are getting compromised. The traditional rights are getting compromised. So this is what identified, okay. So here what you have to keep in mind is, this was signed in this agreement, okay. They can ask you, this Kunming Montreal Biodiversity Framework is associated with COP15 of UN CBD that happened in 2022, okay. Did any of the CBD conference happen in India? Happened in India? COP11 happened in Hyderabad itself. Okay. Do remember this. So what is the main objective of this framework is to achieve sustainable development and conservation of biodiversity. That is the main objective. So what are the goals? Main thing is, as I told you, 23 goals were set for 2030 and 4 global goals for 2050. So reducing the threats to biodiversity, sustainable use, benefit sharing, you know, what is CBD targets and all, that is the main objective. Legal thing is, these are not legally enforceable, or you can say not legally binding. That is a main lacuna, you can say. Not legally binding treaty. That is why it doesn't require any mandatory system. If it is not mandatory, then why states or governments will try to implement this? That is again a challenge. So what is target 3 of this Kunming Montreal framework saying is, they are saying that 30% of the world's land, water, seas have to be conserved by 2030. That is what we have seen in one of the objectives. So to realize this, they have to increase the protected area cover. What is 16% is there now, that has to be increased to 30% by 2030. So in the process, if you are increasing more and more protected area, then what happens? It will lead to displacement of tribals. That is what a major challenge. Okay. So what is the controversy? As per the analyst, the target seems to be harmless, but often it can benefit corporates over indigenous communities. So here you can see, in Indonesia, you need not remember the national parks. One national park, indigenous people were lacking the rights of housing, health and education because in the name of protected area, they were displaced. Same happened in Cambodia also. So unfairly, they were convicted for farming within the protected area. One of the farmers was charged of offense for cultivating within the protected area. Like this, it may lead to displacement of tribals in the indigenous communities. So if you have seen in the recent times, even with respect to India also, we have Forest Conservation Amendment brought in 23. We have discussed that also in the class. Godavarman definition of forest. Supreme Court has given the dictionary definition, no? I told you. So in under which recent amendment, center tried to, what it tried to regulate it, or it tried to, what you can say, loosen the ambit of forests. That is why Supreme Court has countered, no? So what Supreme Court said, even if you want to establish a zoo, safari or anything, then it requires the permission of not the central government, but the Supreme Court only. Supreme Court said, that is what we have discussed, no? Judicial overreach also I told you at that point of time, okay? So in that particular class. So that means in case in the future, in the name of forest conservation and to promote ecotourism or these things, if central government wants to establish any zoo, safari, ecotourism things and all, it is not the central government but the Supreme Court which has to give permission. That is what Supreme Court recently has given, because in the name of forest conservation, they are trying to allocate more area for these things. That means again, the tribal people are getting displaced. That is what already identified. So this also includes zoo and safaris as part of forest activities. And according to the experts, protected areas are the first things which can be easily relaxed by the colonial elites. Okay, even the government also can easily make the restrictions less and they can easily make it vulnerable to the people. Okay, or they may turn into the corporate favor. Then this concept has changed, but today ecotourism is still being the people who are there. These people are not getting any benefit from the ecotourism and all, because most of the times if you see, in Gir National Park also we have one particular tribe which is having good, even they can cohabit with lion also. What are those? Not Bishnois, in Gir National Park I'm asking. It starts with M, the tribe name. Normally we don't live in tiger habitat, no? Lion or tiger. But these people, this particular tribe, they know the things, how to treat with lion and all. They pamper, you can say, small cubs and all. In that way they'll do. What is that particular tribe which is residing in Gir National Park? Yes, any answer? No? Take it as a homework. Because you need to know these unique things. Then, what is this global biodiversity framework mean for India? Because as I told you, 84% of India's national parks, out of which you can say out of 106, 89 has indigenous people living within their area, okay, or protected area. So when you say this initiative, for example, as I told you in Rajasthan, a tiger reserve is going to impact 162 tribal villages living within the tiger reserve. Same way it happened with Naura Devi Sanctuary. When we wanted to reintroduce cheetah, almost 62 villages of the people got removed or displaced from that area. In that way, it is harming the tribal people. So in Assam also, the same case happened with Khasis and Dimsas when they wanted to establish that wildlife sanctuary. In this way, some examples were identified. So what is the main suggest is what you have to suggest here is, these people are the guardians, no? Mostly. The tribal people are the better people who can judge what is good and all, how the animal movement will be there, what type of things will happen in the forest and all. So they have to be treated as guardians, but they should not be removed from the protected areas or displaced. So the most important thing is you have to change, because in the recent times with PESA amendment or Forest Conservation Act and all, the tribal people are getting more impacted. So these things have to be addressed. So in case if there is any human right violation in the protected areas, those things have to be treated seriously. There is a way forward you can suggest. Then we have another important topic is internet freedom in India. This is the most important thing without which we cannot live today, right? Even without oxygen, we can live for some time, but without internet you cannot live, right? Yes or no? Is in right to internet a fundamental right? Did Supreme Court recognize it as a fundamental right? 21. Okay. I'm asking whether it is clearly said by Supreme Court as fundamental right, like right to privacy. Did it recognize? Good. Kerala court cheppindi. But there is no recognition by the Supreme Court as of now. Okay, they didn't recognize, but they said it is important. Okay, as part of development and education of that person, it is important. Is it? So why it is important? Because in the recent times, even in 2016, UN Commission on, UNHCR you have no, Human Rights Commission in the UN level. So that also has recognized in 2016 that internet should be given as a fundamental right. They have recommended that every country has to give right to internet as fundamental right. So why internet is very important? Because you know, in every aspect, okay. So in developmental things, as part of our daily lives, in payments, education, everywhere, okay. So everything is being run by government, and you know, we are trying to digitalize everything. In this aspect, internet is very important. But why we are discussing this is because in the recent report, it was found that in the last few years, almost 7,000 hours of internet shutdown happened in India. 7,000 hours. What is meaning of the word internet shutdown? Means you're blocking internet services. It can happen by restricting 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G services, or it can be through Wi-Fi connectivities also. Okay, if any of these things are restricted, then you can call it as internet shutdown. So why this is increasing? Yes, when you have law and order situations, okay. For example, in Citizenship and Amendment Act we have, and when Article 370 was abrogated, at that time we have some issue happening. So when you have some sense of danger, so if this is internet is there, you know, in this time, easily it can be spread information. Even in the fake news also it can happen easily, you know, because of the internet. So when there is a danger, then internet can be restricted by the government. So from where they're having this authority is 3 acts are there in India. One is Indian Telegraph Act. Indian Telegraph Act is talking in case of any public emergency. If there is any public emergency at that time, you can suspend. That power is being given to the central government. Okay, Indian Telegraph Act. Then Section 69A of IT Act. If any offensive content is being circulated in the internet, then that can be restricted by the central government. Do remember section 66A is different, which was struck down by Supreme Court in Shreya Singhal versus Union of India case. That is different because they have upheld Article 19 there. But here this is section 69A of same IT Act. Then third act we have is UAPA. What is UAPA? Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Okay, so you know. So this act also, in case if any person is resorting to terrorist type of things using internet as a platform, under UAPA also there are some provisions to restrict internet for some time. Okay, so here you have to remember about some cases at least. Most important case is Anuradha Bhasan case. Okay, most very important and prominent case. Before that, you just have to remember about Fahima Sireen case also. This is a case of Kerala college student where she was like a Kerala student, and when she was studying in a college hostel, there were some restrictions on usage of internet for girls between 6 to 10 p.m. They cannot use internet between 6 to 10. So she was challenging this decision in the Kerala High Court. So what did they say at that time? After understanding what is the nature and the time and everything, they said that in the digitalized era, in the name of education and any personality development and all, it is very important that internet should be provided. So they said internet has to be provided and you cannot curtail the right to internet. That is what only said. But then what happened in Anuradha Bhasan case? Okay, so what already High Court has recognized there is right to internet. Okay, but what happened in this case is this Anuradha Bhasan is from Jammu and Kashmir. When this Article 370 was abrogated, how many days you know? Almost for 400 days, internet was shut down in Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so at that time, she approached Supreme Court of India saying that for this much prolonged time, okay, so whether this can be imposed, such internet restriction or shutdown can be imposed or not, whether it is constitutionally valid or not, means what Supreme Court observed is, so you are saying, like for example, if we consider right to internet as a fundamental right under Article 19, they have recognized. It is not under 21. Okay, 21 is also right to life. You need to have internet in these ages, but speech and expression, no, right to internet is intrinsic part of Article 19. So they said, Supreme Court clearly said that under Article 19 we have reasonable restrictions. Yes or no? In certain restrictions can be imposed on your fundamental right, like public order and all these things, security of the country and all. In case if national security danger is there, then you can impose internet shutdown for a temporary period. But that internet shutdown cannot happen for indefinite period. It happened in the case of Jammu and Kashmir, no? You already have abrogated, for months it is there and it has been almost 400 days and it is continuing. That is why she approached Supreme Court of India. Then what Supreme Court said? It should be for a definite amount of time only. You cannot extend it further or you cannot go it for indefinite period. So it has to be restored, means immediately center saying that what they'll agree or not. They'll say that it is national security which is important. At the time Supreme Court said, no, you cannot restrict for long. Try to give at least minimal speed internet like 2G, 3G. Instead of 4G and 5G, try to initiate 2G and 3G services so that they also will have the right to internet. So this is Anuradha Bhasan versus Union of India case, which is very important with respect to right to internet as intrinsic part of Article 19, freedom of speech and expression. Okay. Then in another case that is not so much important, but in a media found different groups of media, they have approached Supreme Court with respect to internet shutdown. In that case, what Supreme Court said is there should be a clear balance between freedom of speech and expression, right to internet, and at the same time national security. So there should be a balance. So either in the name of freedom of speech, you cannot go against national security, and in this way also, other way also you cannot go. So there should be a delicate balance which should be always protected. So in this ground, you have to know under which article this right to internet will fall under your fundamental rights. Then you should know under which laws internet shutdown is legal in India, which laws I already discussed, no, Indian Telegraph Act, Section 69A of IT Act, then we have UAPA. These three laws are governing internet shutdowns in India. Then you also need to know about the famous landmark case, Anuradha Bhasan case. Okay, these are the aspects. So I have given some data. So in 3 instances, longest internet shutdown happened recently is in Manipur. Before that we have in Jammu and Kashmir. Manipur violence we have recently. So that is the longest ever shutdown, internet shutdown happened in India. So most of the times why they will shut down internet is again to prevent information, because misinformation or anything against the government also may go wrong. Okay, that is why in the name of national security they are going. So here I have given some data. Almost 780 shutdowns happened between 14 to 23, and for 7,000 hours it happened. Okay, this data you can quote in case of any answer. So citizenship amendment, abrogation of Article 370, introduction of farm bills. At that time also, internet was suspended in Punjab and Haryana. J&K has the highest number of shutdowns, more number of times, but longest time happened in Manipur, continuously. So why it is important is because in the global level, internet freedom also has declined. In different countries also the same case is there, like in India. So I already discussed. So even with respect to Anuradha Bhasin case, they also have discussed about section 144 of IPC, CRPC, not IPC, CRPC, where curfew will be imposed. No? Those type of things also cannot be easily imposed. Supreme Court said, okay, only when it is needed. Section 144 of CRPC, or even with respect to internet shutdowns also, they have to sparingly use this. They should not use it whenever they wanted to impose. So these are the laws. Indian Telegraph Act, Public Emergency, Section 69A and UAPA. These are the laws. And criticism is, again, this is against fundamental rights. So in the recent times, you cannot stop anyone. British era laws. So this is the main thing. And Anuradha Bhasin case is most important thing. Then we have last topic to be discussed is Indian opting to give birth abroad. Why? This issue is related to surrogacy. We have tightened surrogacy rules and regulations in India, no? So now people who are not having surrogacy in India, they're trying to give birth abroad, because US citizenship is giving such provisions. US people, in case if they take surrogacy option in US, the child which will be born out of that surrogacy will be given US citizenship immediately. Then they will be considered as overseas citizen of India. This is also one benefit they have. At the same time, the law is also allowing them, in case if the couple is from different country also, US laws are allowing that they can have surrogacy there. So it is becoming a advantageous position for the Indian couple who cannot have surrogacy in India. So in this context, you should know what are the main requisites for surrogacy in India. So because surrogacy is one of the most important issue we are seeing in the recent times, right? In surrogacy, what happened? Surrogacy means what? Other than the biological mother. So I'm biological mother. If some other woman, okay, she carries the embryo and she delivers instead of the biological mother, we call it as surrogacy. So what happens in surrogacy is India has become surrogate capital of the world because of easy availability. So if you pay anyone 10,000, they're ready to bear your child also. In that way, poor women are being vulnerable, and it is having health impacts also and legal impacts also sometimes. Okay, sometimes foreigners are coming here and they're asking the people to have surrogacy and all. Later, sometimes they're withdrawing from the decision. These people who are already under poverty have to bear that child and they cannot ignore that child. No, they cannot. And sometimes they're asking them to abort also in the meantime. So like this, it has become very easy for them to make them vulnerable. So in this situation, Supreme Court has intervened and they said a law or rules and regulation has to be brought in this regard. So we have so many famous couples who went for surrogacy, right? You have many number of couples. Nayantara, then Shah Rukh Khan, Karan Johar, then Priyanka Chopra, Shilpa Shetty, then that's it. Manchu Lakshmi also here. Okay. So like this, we have many number of people who went for surrogacy in the recent times. So what happened is, in India, 2021, for the first time, we have given some set of rules saying that commercial surrogacy is banned. Commercial surrogacy means you cannot ask anyone to become a surrogate mother just in the name of money. Only altruistic surrogacy is allowed. What is altruistic means? Without monetary consideration, just if you are a close relative of the woman, the person, okay, the surrogate mother, and you already have a child on your own, and if you are voluntarily willing to give birth to another person, okay, then at that situation only you can undergo surrogacy. That means commercial surrogacy, in the name of money you cannot undergo surrogacy. Altruistic is only allowed in India. These are the first main thing you have to keep in mind. And they have given clear set of guidelines, like at least marriage, afterwards 5 years you have to try for the children. After 5 years only if you don't have, and if there is any disease or if there is any infertility issues, if they are, who have to give them, and means again certificates have to be brought by the district medical board that these couple cannot have children in the future. In those situations only they can undergo surrogacy. Apart from this, they also have clearly said that in case if there is a living child, you cannot undergo surrogacy. That means already one child if you have, and if you want two or more then, and you are not getting that child, then you cannot undergo surrogacy. But one exception they have given is, in case if that living child is suffering from any mental abnormalities or physical prolonged illness and all, if that person's life is not clear, in that situation you can go for surrogacy. And they have even prescribed the age limits for women and men. 26 to 35 or 40 years for women and 26 to 55 years for men. That is the age in which they can have the children, right? Reproductive age of the men and women. So in that age only they will be allowed for surrogacy. And what is the main challenge then if everything is okay in surrogacy means? Here, yes, LGBTs are not having, like Karan Johar, he openly declared himself as a gay, no? So, but other people, so LGBTQ community, they required, see what happened is previously, recently only central government has relaxed the rules with respect to surrogacy. But previously what they have clearly said is, you have to get the sperm and egg from the mother and female, that only has to be fertilized in the lab and that only can be used for surrogacy. That means in case if the male is having some defect in the sperm, or if the girl is not having eggs and all properly, then what about this couple? Those couples are not allowed previously for surrogacy. The central government did not allow. So the mother of such, which is coming from such situation where she doesn't have any natural eggs for herself, she went to the Supreme Court of India. She said, I'm not having eggs. Okay, then how can I undergo surrogacy? This is against my reproductive choice, because Supreme Court, you have remembered, under abortion rights also it said, right to reproduction is integral part of that woman's right to life and personal liberty. It is her freedom. Then how you can restrict? How center can restrict that because she doesn't have eggs on her own? How you can restrict that you cannot undergo surrogacy? Okay, if any donor is willing to give her egg and her husband's sperm will be used, why you are restricting? Immediately center was asked to bring some reforms or amendments with respect to this, and they have brought. Previously donor surrogacy is only allowed, means mother and the wife and husband only has to give the sperm and egg. But now even if one of the person is having any defect, donor can contribute to it and it can result in surrogacy in this way. Okay, so as the rules got tightened in India with respect to surrogacy, some people are taking the option abroad. Okay, this is in the context. So you can see in US the laws are well defined. They're opening the gates for surrogacy there, and they can get the embryo created from the healthy couple, and there is gender selection also. In India that is not the case. Means you can choose the gender also. Otherwise you can abort the embryo also. Then the person will be given the citizenship of US. At the same time he can hold also overseas citizenship in case of Indian couples. So what happened is, what is surrogacy I told you? It is only permitted for altruistic things. And if there is proven infertility and disease from the couple side, then only surrogacy will be allowed. It is prohibited for commercial reasons, even for prostitution and all this traffickings and all, that will be not allowed. Abortion means only with the consent of the surrogate mother. So initially you will say, I want to undergo surrogacy, but later on if you drop your decision, then the surrogate mother cannot be with the victim, right? She already has her own children. She cannot treat someone else's children in the same way, right? So that is why only abortion will be allowed if the consent of the surrogate mother is given here. That means the third woman's consent who is bearing the child. This is one provision. And it should be according to the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. You know what is medical termination of pregnancy. So under what situations it can be done? 20 to 24 weeks only you can do abortion legally. Beyond 24 weeks, maximum till 26 weeks, it can be done only in rare situations like rape, and if there is a danger to the girl's or the woman's life, if the birth is given, if there is a danger to the woman's life, it is proved and all, then only beyond that 24 weeks and to 26 weeks only abortion can be done. Otherwise, abortion is not allowed in India. So we have some 1971 Act and recent amendments were also made. And Supreme Court also said in this only. So certificates of eligibility and essentiality also has to be issued by district medical boards that these couples, it is very essential for them to undergo surrogacy. Then age is 23 to 50 and 26 to 55 years for the men. Then couple must not have any living child. Only exception is if they have any physical mental disabilities and they are exempted. Essential practice or essential certificate has to be given by the district medical board. So then only they can undergo surrogacy. So insurance coverage also has to be provided for the surrogate mother. What in case if she died in giving birth to surrogate child? So insurance coverage for 16 months means how much? 9 plus 7, 9 months no delivery time. Beyond that 7 extra months also, because post delivery complications can be there, that also will be there, postpartum complications. Then eligibility, surrogate mother should be a close relative of the couple. At the same time, she should have a child of her own and she should be aged between 25 to 35 and only once she can become a surrogate in her lifetime. Very good decisions, right? Then she must also have a certificate that she is eligible for giving birth to in the surrogacy way and all. So regulations we have National Surrogacy Board at the national level constituted by central government, and the state level we have state governments constituting state surrogacy boards. Yashoda movie you might have seen, no? To regulate such infertility centers and all, this was created. So what are the offences? It include commercial surrogacy. If you sell embryos or exploit and abandon surrogate mother, you will be charged under this law. So what maximum 10 years for imprisonment will be there and fine of 10 lakhs will be there. So it is upholding reproductive autonomy at the same time rights and well-being of the surrogate mother as well as the child. So these are the main things. In this way, assisted reproductive techniques. Okay, what is the main drawback of this law is it is not taking care about single mothers, single fathers, single parents. So if the wife or husband, if there only one person is there and other person is not there, as I told you previously, donor should come from wife and husband only. No, there is no donor concept. So then in those situations, what will be the fate? Okay, or in LGBTQ, same-sex marriages, how they can give the birth, how they can get this egg and sperm. That is the main drawback of this law. So here you can see those challenges. Discriminatory and violative, because again Article 14 and 21 gets violated, right? Right to life. It is also having reproductive choices under it. So this is one main thing. So you have to uphold the reproductive rights and you have to do justice to all the stakeholders. This is the last thing. Okay. So now we'll be discussing quickly. We'll go through each and every one. So each and every article we'll discuss here. Great Indian Bastards. You know why it is so much in news. Okay. Supreme Court of India said recently, and it asked the central government because this Great Indian Bustard is already critically endangered. Okay. So when it is already critically endangered, it is still facing some risk of extinction from power transmission lines. Okay. So if you are openly giving this power transmission lines, then these particular species are getting impacted and they are asked center to examine about underground power transmission lines. Okay. But center said if we have to take up underground, it will take our costs increased and also it is not safe, and that way they have expressed their concerns. In this context, Supreme Court is like you can say this also as judicial overreach. Okay, although it is good aspect only, but still. So here you have to keep in mind what about this Great Indian Bustard. It is very important because it is a critically endangered species. Very important. You have to remember this is a state bird of Rajasthan, and they also have launched a project Great Indian Bustard (GB). If you have remembered, when we have this CMS convention COP13 happened in Gandhinagar. This was the Muscat Convention on Migratory Species. It happened in Gandhinagar. Gandhinagar Declaration was adopted. Okay, Bonn Convention we call. When it happened in Gandhinagar, Muscat, you have some symbol will be chosen for that conference. That was this Great Indian Bustard. Okay, GB we call. So it is very practically implemented. That is what center said. Because in the recent times, in the name of solar energy, wind energy, we are having these things, no? So it is increasing now. Power transmission lines, infrastructure related to power, it is increasing. But at the same time, it is threatening this particular species. So one most important thing you have to keep in mind is, this is an indicator of grassland habitat. Only in grasslands you find this. And only hardly 150 we have in India. Mostly in Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. Okay. In APPSC also they have asked this question. Where do you find in Andhra Pradesh? Rollapadu Wildlife Sanctuary in Andhra Pradesh. So it is a flagship species of grasslands So you can see mostly in Rajasthan and Gujarat, critically endangered. So threats faced is overhead power transmission lines, free-ranging dogs sometimes, and widespread use of pesticides in farmlands, and in case if grasslands are not there, then also they're facing threats. So these are the threats. So conservation measures in 2015, this species was made part of species conservation program by Wildlife Institute of India and Rajasthan Forest Government, and bird diverters were installed. Okay, sometimes bird diverters will divert. Okay, they will give some signals if the bird is coming, they will divert so that they will be escaping from this collision with the electric lines and all. So Supreme Court has intervened, and I told you what is the argument of center. So center said it is not feasible economically. Then you have United Nations report on global food waste. Most important thing you have to keep in mind is food waste report was released by UNEP. Okay, they can ask, it is released by FAO. They'll give first option FAO because it is related food. But do remember it is released by UNEP, UN Environment Program. The data is not so important until unless if you are asked, but most important environment aspect is even from the food waste we have greenhouse gases released, methane and all this. Okay, so you have to understand 1.05 billion tons of food got wasted in 22, and at the same time we have this many people suffering from food insecurity, hunger and all, but we are having food waste. If you see in India also, we have, this is not a rich problem, rich country problem, it is happening in India also. And in India, almost per capita, if you count, 55 kgs of food is getting wasted per capita, per head. Okay, you and I also. Then there is a urban and rural disparities observed in terms of food waste. Means rural areas are wasting their food less compared to urban areas. This is one thing they have observed. Impact is environmental impact, 8 to 10% of greenhouse gases are being released from food waste and all. Social impact is food insecurity, economic loss, poverty, hunger and all. So you have seen India per capita is almost 55 kgs per year they're wasting. One person, 55 kgs for food per year is wasting in India. This is not at all a good thing. And rural India is wasting less compared to the urban. Okay. And in the prelims point of view, just remember UNEP. It is most important. Then India-led group of friends initiative. They can ask these type of things it is related to. Okay. So you know UN peacekeepers will be there in war-torn areas. No. Okay. In those areas, in case if these peacekeepers are getting attacked by any reason. So this is a coalition spearheaded by India in 2022 only, when India occupied as a UNSC head as a non-permanent member. We from 21 to 22 we were a permanent head of UNSC Security Council, non-permanent member. Okay, at that time India has launched this initiative, group of friends, so that the attacks on the peacekeepers will be minimized. That is the objective of this initiative. Just remember that as point of. Okay, so it was launched by India only in 22. 40 countries are part of this. What they want is political will, and the resolution, UNSC resolution 2589. So with respect to attack on peacekeepers, that should not be there with respect to this. 40 countries including India. As this is launched by India under Indian presidency, it is very important. Okay. And functions, accountability, capacity building and technical assistance, and monitoring progress with respect to crimes against peacekeepers. Just remember, it is to prevent crimes against peacekeepers, this initiative was launched by India in UNSC. Then we have, in the recent times, if you have heard a term in Kerala, floods are coming suddenly, and we have a term called Kalla Kadal. That is a term, local Kerala term, which translates as sea as a thief. Sea. Kadal means, Kadali means what? Sea or ocean, no? Okay. Kalla means in Kerala language, it is thief. Sea will be like a thief. Thief means, you know when thief will be entering your house? No. Unknowingly surprise visits will be made, no? Same way, sometimes this swell waves or giant waves, or you can say these are coming suddenly and they're flooding Kerala. This intensity has been increasing. So in geography terms, you have to know what is a swell waves. Okay. Normally these swell waves will be seen in the pre-monsoon period. Pre-monsoon means before monsoon during summer months. Okay. So what is the most important thing you have to keep in mind is we have ocean waves also coming in a giant wave when we call it as tsunami. But what is the difference between this and tsunami is, in tsunami, what creates tsunami waves? In case if there's earthquake, volcano, landslides, or if there is any explosion under the sea, that will trigger tsunami. Yes or no? But in this situation, what is causing the swell waves is if there is any strong energy released, okay, from the far distant hurricanes, tsunamis or cyclones, if they're occurring in the ocean at a far distant place, from there the energy will be driven by the wind, and that wind is causing the swell waves to cause flooding in the coastal areas. And this is usually seen in the southwest coast of India in Kerala pre-monsoon. Most of the time pre-monsoon only. In very rare situations in post-monsoon this will be seen. Okay, this is what you just have to remember. Sometimes they can ask you the term and they can ask the local term. Kallakadal means it is a swell wave. Okay, giant wave coming which was triggered by a hurricane that happened in the distant ocean. It is not related to any tsunami or something. It is triggered by the energy created by that action of the cyclone or hurricane in the ocean carried by the wind. Strong winds will be carrying this to the coast. That is what you have to keep in mind. Okay. So swell waves are those generated by the energy beneath the surface. They don't no longer require the local wind. Okay. From the wind itself, it will be carried from the far distances. So Kallakadal, that is the term you have to keep in mind. Ocean waves coming from the longer distances from their area of origin generated by distant weather systems or storms like hurricanes. They will be generating this. So you have to keep in mind they have consistent and smooth appearance without breaking. So they can shape the coastal areas, they can inundate and they can cause coastal erosion also. That is why they are very much important. Then we have another program called NICE. Okay, so these type of things can be asked. NICE program is launched by ISRO and as well as other ministries like departments of space and all. So for what reasons is they are using space-based climate intelligence units to challenge the climatic change and weather extreme conditions. Okay, ISRO is using the space related data and it is collaborating with departments and ministries to coordinate with respect to essential climate variables. What are essential climate variables? ECVs means temperature, all these things. Okay, how they're varying, what are causing these things. Those will be observed by ISRO and some programs under this NICE program. So these type of things can be asked. Okay, what is the objective and all. Essential climate variables I already discussed. Then know about this Kondareddy tribe. Okay, indigenous knowledge, and most importantly I am expecting a question on this because these people, they have good idea about Indian laurel tree. Why this is in news? Because recently water is gusting out of the tree bark. When the tree bark was cut, huge amount of water is bursting out of the tree bark. Laurel tree. So they can ask you where it will be, in what type of forest it can be, in where like what are the areas it can be and all. You have to remember. Okay, already they have asked about red sandals. No, Papikonda National Park they have identified. So this, it is also called Indian silver oak. In what purposes will be using it? Furniture. Okay, in all those designs will be using. Kondareddy tribe is normally a scheduled tribe in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Do remember this. Okay, I have given here. So why we need to protect this? Traditional knowledge, you know, TKDL. Traditional knowledge, digital libraries we call, no? The tribal people, they have good idea about how the tree will be there, what is the use of that bark and all. So why these things have to be protected is, indigenous knowledge will be protected, better participation with the forest officials and tribes will increase, environmental conservation, sustainability. These are the benefits if you conserve indigenous knowledge. At the same time, you should know about Indian laurel tree. Here you have, this will be there in dry and moist to deciduous forests. Very important. These type of questions can be asked because this is a very unique phenomenon where we are getting water directly from a bark of a tree. Okay. So dry and moist deciduous forests in southern India, not only confined to India, not endemic to India, in South Asia and Southeast Asia also we find this Indian laurel tree. It is also called Indian silver oak. Do remember, it will be used for furniture, some dyeing also will be used and all these things. Okay, do remember these uses. Then we have Mohiniyattam. You know what is Mohiniyattam? One of the classical dances from Kerala. 8 classical dances we have. What are those? Quickly revise. Bharatanatyam from Tamil Nadu, Kuchipudi from Andhra Pradesh, Mohiniyattam from Kerala, Kathakali from Kerala, Kathak from UP and Western India. Then Odissi from Odisha. Then Manipuri from Manipur. Then Assam, what you call? Satriya from Assam. Okay, these are 8 classical dances. Meer chaduvutunnaro, nenu revise chestunna naaku ardham kavatledu. 8 classical dances which were recognized by Sangeet Natak Academy. Why this is very important again? Because for the first time Kerala, one of the organization which is interested with this, they have lifted a ban on Mohiniyattam because previously Mohiniyattam was only performed by female, but now they made it gender neutral. Means even men are also allowed to perform Mohiniyattam. Very significant, bold decision taken by Kerala organization. So it is expected that a question can be asked in this regard. You need to know what is Mohiniyattam. Mohini means you know. When Vishnu disguised as a woman, okay. So Ayyappa's birth and all, you know what is the story. But what you have to keep in mind is it is one of the classical dances, 8 classical dances we have, and it is having its origins from Natya Shastra. Who have authored this? Bharat Muni. Again, I am saying this. Lasya, Tandava type of dance, Nritya, you have Nritta and Natya. So 3 elements will be there. Lasya means feminine dance. Tandav means male dance. Shiva. Shiva Tandava mantam yada. So that is the basic aspect you have to keep in mind. And this is usually performed by Devadasis at the time of Chera kings in Kerala. This is most common thing where we have observed. So you can see this is Lasya type, a feminine type of dancing. Theme will be mostly love and devotion to a god. Devadasis means the same thing, no? Love and devotion to God. And at the same time, they used to portray as Vishnu and Krishna only, most of the characters. So it was only performed by female previously, but now that barrier is removed. So this is called Manipravla. In the Malayalam language, a combination of Sanskrit and Malayalam. In this language, the songs will be composed based on the they will perform. So what is the music style is Carnatic, Southern Indian music style. And these instruments will be used. Mridangam, you have Madalam, Idakka, flute, Veena and Kujitalam. That is called cymbals. Okay. So these type of things. So again UPSC, in case if they ask, they'll give a clue there. Only or such clues will be given. Don't worry about them. So next importantly, why this topic was chosen is, this is triangle we call, upper triangle, or a 6th ocean is being created because of this. 6th ocean in the world. We have 5 oceans, 7 continents, right? So now we are going to have a 6th ocean which is getting created here. You know, here there is a Rift Valley, East African Rift Valley we call, right? What happens? Rift Valley means because of the divergent plate boundaries here. Okay. So see here, do remember, easily I am making it. It is African plate. Here we have small Somali plate, which is a minor plate. So this Somali plate was formed later on. The Somali plate is migrating towards this direction, because of which we have already Rift Valley created. This doesn't happen in a day. It is a geological process which takes millions of years. Okay. Slowly, because of this rift only, we have some lakes created, Lake Victoria and all. You have to keep these things in mind. In examination perspective, they can be asked. So in which countries it is there and all, they can ask you. So here, because of this Rift Valley, when it is getting widened, what happens? It gets separated and the 6th ocean will be created here. So this is what we call upper triangle. Very important. And do remember, it is being created by divergent plate boundaries between African plate, which is major plate, and Somali plate, which is a minor plate. 2 plates, when they get diverged, what happened? Lava will be coming out, right? In convergent and divergent boundaries, volcanism is most common. But because of divergence, what happened? Rifts happen. Sometimes what happen? In this rift, if water is there, then we call it as ocean. Or in Narmada Valley, we have this rift, no? Why Narmada is flowing through Rift Valley? It also was created, but it is not a huge scale depression like this. Because it was created on land, here it is a depression in the ocean water. That is why they are flowing through Rift Valleys. Do remember this. This is in this part. So this is what upper triangle. They can ask this also. What is upper triangle recently seen in news? Okay, these type of questions, because you cannot deduct anything from the answer until unless you are sure about it. So it is having the potential to create a 6th ocean in the world. Which is the largest ocean? 2nd, Atlantic, good. Then Indian. Then what is the 4th largest ocean in the world? Arctic. 5th, okay, correct. Then see here, this is going to be created by East African Rift Valley system, and already it has started almost in 5 to 10 million years ago. We can have 6th continent or 6th ocean formed also. So this is part of Great African Rift Valley. So what is another homework is, find out the countries which are part of Great African Rift Valley. Okay, they can ask this type of question. I already gave here also, but you just Google it out on the map. Also try to check what are the water bodies, what are the mountains or deserts in this area. Very important. Eritrea, Djibouti and upper region of Ethiopia. Okay, this upper region where this is happening, that is why they named it as upper triangle. Okay, it appears like a triangle, the area which is drifting out. So it is named as. It is containing Lake Assal, the Africa's lowest point. This is very dry area. Very high temperatures were recorded here, because of which it is very dry. Okay. So here I have given the 5 oceans. It is Antarctic in 4th and 5th is Arctic. Okay, do remember this. Then last but one we have is Hume AI. Okay, Hume AI means in our AI we are having different aspects coming in the news recently. If you have seen Devin AI, world's first AI software engineer. Okay, like this, whatever the things comes for the first time in the world in artificial intelligence, times can be directly given. They can ask you what is this. So Hume AI means an AI with emotional connect. Okay, for example, in the same way like how we speak emotionally connected with another one, same way this AI also will be connecting with us emotionally. Okay, this is what the name is, Hume AI. New York based research lab has developed this first conversational AI based on emotional intelligence. Conversational means when you just switch on with your microphone and you converse, then it will also react with you emotionally. Okay, this is what you have. World's first emotionally intelligent voice AI. World's first. That is why it is very much important to know the term and all. So it will be giving generated text or audio and also transcripts will be given. This is based on empathetic large language model. Large language model means which will be used to converse, okay, having the set database and all. So this will be using the database and it will be reacting with you in an empathic way, in an emotional way. That is why it is named as world's first conversational emotional intelligence AI. Okay, do remember this name. Last we have is Clean Energy Transition Program. Okay, this was a report released by IEA, International Energy Agency, not IAEA. Understand the difference between IAEA and International Energy Agency. This report. Okay, so what is the criteria? Is India a member of this International Energy Agency? Is India a member of this organization? Yes or no? If you answer quick, you can leave quick. Otherwise, you know, I don't leave you easily. India is not a member of International Energy Agency. India is a member of International Atomic Energy Agency. India is just an associate member in this organization, and recently only this organization has called us for full membership. Okay, but there are some conditions which we have to fulfill if you have to become member of IEA. Okay, like at least we should have oil reserves for 90 days of our import requirement and all. But you know, again, we don't have such things. Strategic petroleum reserves we are building, you know. So as part of this, you have to keep in mind. So International Energy Agency was created in 1973-74 when there is oil crisis. So that energy, because if oil crisis happens, what happens? Every economy will get collapsed, no? When there is energy shortage and all. So that is why IEA normally mandates to get membership. One prerequisite is they should have membership from OECD. We are not a member in OECD, no? That is one condition. Second thing is at least 90 days of oil requirement should be there. Whatever you import, how much you import, based on that 90 days requirement should be kept in your country as a strategic reserve, so that in case of any crisis, you may not suffer in that scale. In that way, this was launched. So here you have to keep in mind, Clean Energy Transition Report was released so that we wanted to achieve net zero systems. What to do and how to do, they have given to meet the Paris Agreement goals and sustainable development goals. This was given. So here you can see it is an autonomous intergovernmental organization within OECD framework. India doesn't have membership. It was formed in 74 after 73 crisis and 31 member countries are there. India is just associate member. Do remember. Okay. You have another organization called International Atomic Energy Agency, which is UN based organization, which is also called Atoms for Peace, which also has one Nobel Peace Prize, which is monitoring Iran's nuclear deal program. These things, you are clear with this, right? That is IAEA. This is IEA. This is different. Do remember. This is not affiliated to UN. This is outside UN, but it is working as associate member of UN. Do remember this. Okay. So it is, one main condition is they should have membership in OECD. Then only it will be eligible for membership of IEA. This is all. You can leave.